The wonderful adventures of the Warhammer elf. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Raid. As it was still underage, the fire dragon's resilient wing membrane barely withstood a few giant crossbow arrows before being torn into several cracks. Its gorgeous orange-red dragon scales were also torn apart by the crossbow, and a large amount of dragon blood flashing red sprayed out like blooming petals. Ang! The fire dragon wailed and tried to flap its rag-like wings to maintain balance, but it still fell powerlessly towards the deck of the Black Ark like a meteor. Looking at the Lindayu fire dragon falling from the sky, Rohan's face changed drastically. He couldn't catch this thing. Get out of the way. Without Rohan's words, the crossbow gunners quickly fled, and the gunners who were farther away tried to move the crossbow away. After all, the cost of 200 gold coins per unit was worth the risk. Bang! In less than 10 seconds, the huge body of the fire dragon smashed onto the deck of the Black Ark, destroying several surrounding Reaper crossbows, which made Rohan heartbroken. The pirates who stayed behind in the Black Ark began to cover the gunners' evacuation, while taking up chains and crossbows, and watching the huge figure in the dust and fog with vigilance. Rohan drew out his imperial sword and shield, praying that the anti-large bonus of the silver sword in his hand would have some effect, and ordered, "Crossbows ready, aim, and wait for my order before firing." The dozen or so harvester crossbows approaching instantly turned their muzzles and aimed at the hazy giant figure in the fog, ready to fire at any time. After the dust and fog dissipated, Rohan and others found that the fire dragon seemed to have fainted, but a Black Ark pirate who was close to it pretended to be brave and walked around the fire dragon's body. He couldn't help but complain, "Poor acting." The fire dragon was closing its eyes, and there were several bloody scars on the wound on its abdomen. It looked like it was seriously injured and about to die. But the heavy breathing and the trembling giant claws still exposed the fact that it was pretending to be dead. The fire dragon, unable to fly, had given up the idea of escaping at this time, and only wanted to kill Rohan, the Lord, before being killed. Although this fire dragon was young, just a child of more than 1,000 years old, it was still smart, and had guessed that Rohan, who had just given orders, was a hostile lord. After all, whether it was elves, humans, or even greenskins, they were proud to be able to capture a dragon alive, so it thought that Rohan would definitely try to capture it alive with chains. Dragons spend most of their time sleeping, and will only be awakened by the dragon prince when war is needed. Since many dragons do not want to fight, and just want to be dead fat houses, more and more giant dragons and emperor dragons cannot be awakened. It's a pity that it has never honed its acting skills since it was a child, and another experienced elf of more than 1,000 years old saw through its poor acting skills at a glance. Rohan didn't care whether the dragon was pretending to be dead or really dead. He would not risk the crossbow worth tens of thousands of gold coins on the deck being destroyed by the sea of fire in exchange for the so-called glory. After gesturing to the crossbowmen around him with his neck and then pointing at the fire dragon's neck, Rohan raised his imperial sword and ordered, "Shoot." Dozens of giant crossbow arrows instantly shot at the fire dragon's neck. The fire dragon instantly opened its eyes, barely dodged the fatal crossbow arrows shot at its neck, and roared towards Rohan. "Come on, you ugly bitch." Looking at the fire dragon that opened its mouth to bite him, Rohan could vaguely smell the fishy smell in its mouth, so he swung his imperial sword and chopped at its mouth. A trace of disdain flashed in the fire dragon's eyes. How could a mere broken sword hurt? Aoang! The sharp silver sword blade easily tore a big hole in the fire dragon's mouth like a hot knife cutting butter. The hot dragon blood splashed from the wound, making Rohan wish that there was a basin underneath to catch it. The fire dragon's scream spread across the battlefield, causing the already disadvantaged high elf army to begin to waver. Previously, they had seen the tragic scene of the fire dragon being shot down from the sky by the crossbow of Darach. Although they were full of confidence in the fire dragon, they still doubted its safety in their hearts. Now, the tragic wailing of the fire dragon was undoubtedly the last straw that broke their morale, and the morale that had been severely hit by the crossbow became even more depressed. Alastair was also in a hard fight. Although each of his attacks could knock away several Durach, more Durach would surround him and attack him with honorless backstabs. If it were just the rapier of the dark swordsman and the sharp spear of the dread spearman, it would not be enough to penetrate his armor, but the long halberd of the Silver Mist Guard made him suffer. It seemed that they inherited Rohan's wretched style of dealing with people. These unlearned warriors always took advantage of Alastair's fighting with others and used the sharp halberd blade on the other side. When the angry Alastair turned around and prepared to attack, the Silver Mist Guard on the other side would continue to attack, constantly consuming Alastair's physical strength. At this time, Alastair was no longer as high-spirited as before. The bright white breastplate was full of cuts, and the white lion skin on his back had several holes left because of the sneak attack of the Silver Mist Guard. He held the axe in both hands and tried to split a dread spearman in half, but found that the axe blade was stuck in the shield. His physical strength was about to run out. Looking at the tired Alastair, the dread spearman showed an excited smile on his face. Could it be that he would kill the enemy generals in the battle and welcome the days of wealth and glory? However, Alastair's waving iron fist directly shattered his beautiful dream and his skull. After pulling out the battle axe from the shield, Alastair looked at the desolate fortress in the distance. Seeing that the flag of the High Elves had not been planted on the city wall so far, he couldn't help but feel anxious. He had been fighting on the coast for so long, why couldn't he take down this fortress? Alastair didn't know that the siege troops he was thinking about at this time had already fallen into chaos. Outside the desolate fortress, nearly 1,000 high elf archers were leisurely pulling their bowstrings, suppressing the Durach crossbowmen on the city wall with accurate and deadly arrows. Every high elf civilian can use bows and arrows, which means that most of the archers in the army are recruits. Only those elite warriors who have been selected and trained are qualified to serve as spearmen. And these recruits who have not experienced actual combat training did not realize that a silent army behind them had already launched a charge towards them. An Asur archer standing in the last row was packing up his quiver. Suddenly, he saw a faint blue light flashing in front of him. He couldn't help but wonder, what? However, he soon lost consciousness. The last glance before he died was to see a familiar headless body slowly falling in front of a silver armored warrior. These archers who were powerless did not expect to be attacked at all. In just a short encounter, hundreds of archers had their heads chopped off. The visitors Orange and his Silver Mist Hunters. P.S. Cold. Chapter 52. Captive Dragon. Enemy attack. With the shrill shouts, more and more Asur archers began to react, drawing their swords to prepare for the enemy. Although the elves of Ulthuan have practiced martial arts since childhood, the peaceful life of thousands of years has made them lose their bloodiness. Most of them just use wooden swords to fight each other and shoot wooden targets and hares with bows and arrows. How can such weaklings be the opponents of iron-blooded warriors like Ange? Every shadow will be abandoned outside the camp by his own people when he was a child. Only those who can survive by relying on their natural instincts and cruelty and return to the camp will be truly accepted. And because the shadows love adventure and excitement, almost all of them live in the mountains of Nagaroth and fight those ferocious beasts. It's really not a poke, living in the mountains. It's really not a poke. Ange rushed into the ranks of the Asur archers. The archers tried to use their swords to resist the double-edged swords of the other side, but they could only watch their bodies being pierced. The other Silver Mist Hunters were not to be outdone. They took light steps to dodge the reckless slashing blades around them and used their enchanted short swords to cut through the leather armor of the archers. In just a few minutes, hundreds of Asur archers were slashed and killed by 90 Silver Mist Hunters. The rest were all scared and fled madly. Looking at the Asur archers fleeing in front of him with disdain, anger shook the blood off the blade and taunted, "You young flower of Ulthuan, do you think you can escape like this? This is the territory of Nagaroth. It is Nagaroth." After taking out the crossbows on their backs, the Silver Mist Hunters smiled and shot deadly crossbow arrows at the backs of the defenseless Asur. As long as it was not the order of Rohan or Lady of the Mist, they would not show mercy to any escaping enemy. After no more archers were in sight, Ange retracted his crossbow and smiled at the Asur army that seemed to be coming to support him from a distance. "Brothers, it's time to retreat." The Silver Mist Hunters gathered quickly and ran into the forest. With the advantage of Stealth. They disappeared from the sight of the elves in a short while. Ange didn't know that this so-called Asur reinforcement was actually the remnants of the defeated army brought back by Alastor. If he chose to stay and block it, he would be able to completely defeat the Rohan army that was chasing him when they arrived. Looking at the elf corpses all over the ground, Alastor's pupils shrank, and his hand holding the giant axe trembled slightly. The terrifying aura emanating from his body frightened the surviving soldiers. Looking at these familiar faces, Alastor couldn't help but close his eyes. These corpses were all the good guys he brought from the kingdom of Krace to the expedition to Dorichi, but now, after a roar as if to vent, Alastor continued to run towards the wall of the desolate fortress. He wanted to check the progress of the siege and prepare to withdraw. Since Krace was full of dense trees, Alastor and his troops were mostly infantry and came to Nagaroth through the navy of the kingdom of Etain. And now, he must find a way to notify the navy to come to support. On the black ark it looks like it's dying. Rohan looked at the fire dragon in front of him, which was covered with crossbow arrows and scars. He pulled out the imperial sword from its chest and couldn't help but sigh. What a powerful creature. I didn't expect that there would be a creature in this world that could survive for so long after being stabbed in the heart. Sir, do you need us to kill it? The crossbowmen around were eager to pull the trigger. After all, the glory of the dragon slayer was too attractive. However, Rohan couldn't help but look around. 8 Reaper crossbows were affected and damaged in the previous battle. If he didn't make back the money, what was the use of the glory? No. Tie it up with iron chains. Tie it up tightly. When the war is over, I will study the effects of dragon blood and dragon scales, and dragon bones and dragon tendons. They will definitely be excellent weapon materials. As if sensing Rohan's undisguised greed and malice, the fire dragon, unable to rise again, could only let out a weak roar unwillingly, and then watch the pirates lock its body up with iron chains. Coming to the immobile fire dragon, looking at the big mouth on its chest opened by the imperial sword, he thought for a while and smiled. Isn't this the best test subject? Since obtaining the primary life potion from the world of The Elder Scrolls V, Rohan has also tried to make dozens of bottles of potion himself using wheat and various healing herbs. However, according to the results of the test on the experimental ratman, it has no other effect except suppressing the ratman's hunger and making them more efficient. Such a result naturally made Rohan very unwilling. After all, the temptation of instantly restoring 18% of the blood volume is too great. As long as he doesn't die, Rohan can drink 5 bottles of potion in a row, and he can be revived instantly with full blood and continue to join the battle. Rohan has also speculated whether he can only make this kind of otherworldly potion when he travels to the world of The Elder Scrolls, but the system gave Rohan hope. Ding. Most of the substances in all parallel worlds are the same. As long as the host works hard to find, he can eventually find a substitute. The system's words made Rohan feel like a spring breeze in the cold Nagaroth. With his talent for alchemy, he quickly made hundreds of potions with unknown efficacy. What better test subject is there than the dragon race, which has the best vitality in the entire Warhammer world? Hehe. The formula is life. And there are such good test subjects. The surrounding Druki retreated one after another, looking at Rohan who was constantly laughing strangely, and shook their heads and sighed. It's over. It's sick again. Rohan doesn't care about the opinions of the Druki around him. After all, he is his own child, so Rohan will expose his second-year side. But now, the battle at Desolate Fortress has not ended yet. Rohan can only suppress the desire to start the experiment immediately. He picked up the Imperial sword and said, Desolate Fortress is still resisting. All troops should attack. We can't lose to our compatriots who have been defending the city walls. P.S. More updates. I think we should break the feudal superstitions. Traditions like this are not trustworthy. CAC. Chapter 53 High Elite Fleet. In the broken reefs of the desolate coast, a large fleet of Asur was moving slowly. The flag of the kingdom of Etain flying on it clearly showed the identity of this navy. Dozens of Asur warships of 100 meters long were surrounding a giant warship of several hundred meters long. The hull, which was like a shining gold, looked particularly sacred on the dark blue sea. This was the flagship of the Etain Expeditionary Fleet, a dragon ship, made of ancient mithril and fine gold, forged in the heat of the dragon's breath. and inlaid with runes with ancient magic power. It was the large ram on top of the dragon ship, the Dragon Blade. Under the command of the silver-helmeted nobles, the dragon ship could cut the enemy's warships with its sharp dragon blade under the cover of the two eagle claw crossbows on the deck. Even the extremely hard stone deck of the Black Ark would be smashed into pieces by the dragon ship's terrifying enchanted ram. On the deck of the dragon ship, an Aesir princess was holding a longbow, looking at the strange smoke on the desolate coast, and couldn't help sighing. 3 warships have been forced to abandon due to running aground. Can't the fog here dissipate? Please rest assured, Princess Yana, the time we agreed with Lord White Lion has arrived. I believe the harbor on the desolate coast should be safe. We can go there to repair. A silver-helmeted noble took the initiative to step forward and offer her courtesy. After all, the other party was a princess from Lothern. If she could climb up the ladder, promotion and salary increase would not be a dream. Looking at this handsome young noble, Yana couldn't help but lick her lips secretly, considering whether to have an exciting seaquake. But considering that they are still in a state of war, she could only regretfully give up this tempting idea and asked seriously. The current task is to wait for the signal from the White Lion. They originally said that they would send a sun dragon to notify us. Why haven't they seen it yet? Maybe the fog on the sea is too thick and the dragon didn't see it? After ignoring the little noble's witty words to please her, Yana looked at the white fog. The sea area like this was not suitable for sailing at all. Forget it. No matter what the order is, let's go directly to the desolate fortress. Maybe the army of Cheris will need our support at this time. Yana didn't know that the army of Cheris, which was dozens of miles away, really needed her assistance, and she didn't know that even the fire dragon that was originally used as a signal was imprisoned. Desolate fortress, don't chase them. That's the direction of the Black Mountains. The scorpion-tailed lions and war hydras in the mountains will treat them well for us. Looking at the retreating Aesir army, Rohan called a halt to the attack of his troops. The soldiers reluctantly gathered under the desolate fortress and formed a battle array. Looking at the desolate fortress with one side of the wall collapsed not far away, and the corpses piled several meters high under the wall, he sighed. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. It seems that the siege has been going on for a long time. While Rohan was observing the desolate fortress, the defenders on the wall were also observing Rohan's army. After a while, the shaky city gate was opened, revealing the defenders inside who were ready for battle. A Durachi wearing the clothes of the Lord of Terror came out, but Rohan did not recognize him. It seemed that he was not a lord under the Lord Witch King. Seeing the boss come out, Rohan was about to greet him, but the boss pointed at him and said arrogantly, I don't know you, kid. Tell me your name. From now on, I will take over your army. Goodbye. Hearing this, Rohan first saluted politely, then turned around and left without even paying attention to him. Rohan has seen too many abnormal dreadlords in Nagaland. In this case, the best way is to ignore the other party and leave quickly. Unfortunately, Rohan still underestimated the other party's arrogance. Seeing that Rohan had no intention of paying attention to him, the dreadlord who was loyal to Morathi raised the sword in his hand and slashed at Rohan. Crazy. Rohan kicked the other party's balls directly and took advantage of the other party's subconscious defense of the vital points and drew out the Imperial sword to confront him. Seeing this, the surrounding fortress defenders and Rohan's army drew their weapons and pointed them at each other. The atmosphere, which had been slightly eased by the repulsion of Aesir, became solemn again. Looking at this resentful Lord of Fear, Rohan was full of helplessness, so he hated dealing with nobles, because their brains and spirits were not normal. Rohan had met several legendary lords, most of whom were very distinctive, such as Malas Blackblade and Loxa Fallen Heart. It should be said that Rohan got along well with them, although Malas had a foul mouth and a bad temper. After learning that Rohan was a Traverser plus alchemist, he hoped that Rohan could help him find a way to suppress the demon in his body, and the relationship between the two sides was quite harmonious. And Loxa was particularly interested in the treasures of the other world. Every time they met, he asked Rohan what the other world was like, and wished that Rohan could open a portal to send him to the other world one day. But apart from these two more famous dreadlords, Rohan really didn't want to have anything to do with other dreadlords, especially the lords of the Cult of Joy. Rohan didn't care about the other party's face. After all, a waste who couldn't even defend the fortress. I believe that neither Morothy nor the Witch King would care about the other party's life or death. You Dreadlord, I will report your actions to the Witch King. Now, tell me where the Witch King is, you bastard. Seeing Rohan pointing the sword at him without any consideration, the Dreadlord was furious and waved the sharp blade in his hand again and rushed towards Rohan. Just when the two sides were about to fight again, a series of alarm bells came from a distance. Rohan hurriedly used the power of the guidance ring to push the other party away and ran out of the city. A dark rider under Rohan's command was rushing over with 2 dark horses. When he saw Rohan, he hurriedly shouted, "Sir, Asur's fleet is attacking. It's the dragon ship of the Attain Kingdom." Dragon ship? How far is it from us? Because the fog is too thick, it is estimated to reach the harbor in 10 minutes. Upon hearing this, Rohan hurriedly took back the Imperial sword, jumped on the dark horse, and shouted to the soldiers around him, "Go back to the ship. Hurry. PS. I'm stuck thinking about how to write it cac. Chapter 54 Naval Battle. Load the ballistas with shotgun shells. All ships should keep a medium distance exchange of fire. Don't let the dragon ships come up." All 80 Reaper ballistas entered the launch pads on both sides. Since most of the Asur warships were sailing warships, all the ballistas were replaced with scattering crossbow arrows that were specially designed to hit the sails. The crew members waved their weapons excitedly. Most of them were facing the Asur navy for the first time, but there was not much fear in their eyes. Instead, they were all excited. But Rohan was full of worries. The range of the Eagle Claw ballista completely crushed the Reaper ballista, so the Black Ark had to keep enough distance to exchange fire and approach. But the 40 frigates fully loaded with Lothern Sea Guards were no joke. If they were allowed to board the deck, Rohan would have to risk crossing the world to open up. Looking at the Asur fleet approaching in the fog, Rohan could only pray that the wind direction today would be more favorable to him. On the dragon ship, Yana was having the same headache as Rohan. As a princess of the kingdom of Lothern, her family asked her to lead the fleet just to make her resume look better. However, looking at the Black Ark, that was as big as 2 dragon ships, she was confused. Yana sighed. She was just a logistics person. It was her responsibility to bring people and then take them away, not to fight with this large Black Ark that was like a hill. But, looking at the impatient eyes of the silver-helmeted nobles in the Lothern navy on the ship, Yana had to give an order. Prepare to attack. But remember not to chase the enemy too far. Our goal is to meet the White Lion Legion of Cheris. In this way, a sea battle in which both commanders were unwilling to participate, but the crews were in high spirits, began in a confused manner. The navy of Itane took the lead. With the advantage of range, the magic crossbow arrows of the Eagle Claw crossbow flew towards the huge body of the Black Ark. Pay attention to dodge. Get close at full speed. Rohan wanted to help resist, but the magic power consumed in the previous capture of the fire dragon has not yet recovered, so he can only hope that the boys are more alert. Fortunately, due to the long distance, the Durachi warriors have enough reaction time to dodge, so there are not too many casualties. Moreover, Asur's frigates seemed to want to surround the Black Ark, so they all dispersed and charged towards the Black Ark at the fastest speed. This move just happened to allow these thin-skinned and large stuffed frigates to enter the range of the Black Ark. Yana made the same mistake as Alastair. She also thought that Rohan's Black Ark was equipped with magic turrets, so she wanted to launch a boarding operation as soon as possible to prevent the long-range advantage of the magic turrets from being brought into play. You thought it was a bomber formation attacking the Yamato, but in fact it was a strange cruiser equipped with hundreds of anti-aircraft guns, pressing the aircraft formation that had not yet flown overhead to the ground. Of course, this can't be blamed on Yana. After all, Rohan's behavior is like installing a bunch of secondary guns on a battleship. You can't say it's useless, you can only say that this behavior itself is very strange. Rohan thought that the opponent would use the advantages of long-range crossbows to let him go, but he didn't expect that the opponent would take the initiative to let him shoot. In this case, push the continuous crossbows to the deck. With the idea of not fighting if not fighting, Rohan took out the continuous crossbows that had been pushed into the cabin again, and even personally took the gunner's position to try his hand. The Lothern Sea Guards on the Asur frigate Not knowing what was waiting for them, they put away their shields and took out their longbows, ready to shoot. However, soon, they will find out how much they actually need the shields on their backs. Shoot. Hit hard. With Rohan's order, 80 Reaper crossbows and 4 continuous crossbows began to vent their firepower, and the rain of arrows shot at the unprepared high elves. With the advantage of height, these scattered crossbow arrows flew like raindrops towards the Aesir frigate 1,000 meters away, stringing the defenseless elves on the deck into a candied hawse. Bang, bang, bang. Rohan licked his lips, sitting on the gun position of the rapid-fire crossbow and constantly pulling the trigger. At this time, he felt like he was playing beach landing. The terrible thing about long-range weapons is that they prevent the user from feeling empathy for those who are attacked. Corresponding to Rohan, who was playing beach landing, was the Aesir frigate, which had no power to fight back and could only be beaten. The only eagle claw crossbow they could use was placed on the bow, and most of them were damaged in the first round of bombardment. The few that could be used could not pose a threat to the Black Ark. Yana stared at the tragic scene on the frigate not far away in amazement. Countless broken limbs and arms were hung on the wall, and the survivors could only fall on the deck and wail in pain. However, this is not the end. With the completion of reloading, the second round of bombardment from the Black Ark once again swept the deck of the frigate, making Yana couldn't help shouting to the chess players, "Keep your distance, let them evacuate, we, full speed ahead, crash into the Black Ark." The captain of the dragon ship interrupted Yana's order directly. Looking at the confused crew, he took over Yana's command and said, "Prepare shields and crossbows, and aim the ram at the Black Ark." "What are you doing? This dragon ship belongs to Lothern. You can't." "Of course I know what I'm doing. The Black Ark has no magic turrets, so traditional tactics can no longer be used against it. Let the frigate cover the dragon ship, and then attack." As a captain who has been fighting vampire pirates for many years, his combat experience is not comparable to that of a little princess. Therefore, he immediately saw the weakness of the Black Ark. There is no long-range firepower at all, and lacks heavy weapons that can kill with one blow. After seeing the dragon boat heading towards the Black Ark, the old crew member looked at the chess player who was at a loss and said, "Send an order to all frigates. Do your best to attract the firepower of the Black Ark. If necessary, ram the Black Ark directly." Yana, who was originally a little confused by the old captain's shouting, hurriedly stopped him after hearing the old captain's order, saying, "You are crazy. Doing this will kill them." "Shut up. You are a noble flower with your head full of ox. We are sailors from Lothern, brave warriors of the sea god Mathurin, and none of us are cowards who fear death. The sea god Mathurin, one of the few reliable gods among the elves, often protects his Aesir navy believers. In order to protect the last elves, he was killed by Slaanesh. But compared to Lilith, who accomplished nothing and always caused trouble, Mathurin successfully protected this group of elves, and after his death, his power has been protecting the surviving elves. This group of elves is the Sea Elves in the AOS era, a tear-jerking god. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Sailor's Song. Dragon Ship. The dragon ship is coming. A series of alarms came from the observation tower. The Aesir dragon ship, which was covered with golden light, was constantly firing shells at the Black Ark, and at the same time, the ram was aimed at the Black Ark to accelerate. Since the building material of the dragon ship is a kind of ancient starwood, its movement speed is much faster than the Black Ark. Rohan aimed a crossbow at the approaching dragon ship, and while pulling the trigger frantically, he shouted, "Don't worry about those frigates. Attack the dragon ship first, that's the flagship." After suffering such heavy casualties, Rohan didn't think these Aesir frigates could continue to fight. It would be better if they could flee on their own. However, the Aesir frigates did not retreat because of the huge casualties. The reason why the High Elves Navy is the best in the world is not just because of the dragon ships and numbers. In the background, Nippon's navy is the best in the world, but I don't intend to write about Nippon at all, so just pretend that this country doesn't exist. Charge. Attack the Black Ark. After receiving the order from the dragon ship, each frigate tried to attract the firepower of the Black Ark, and even deliberately expose the weaknesses of the ship, fighting to the death of the ship. They all knew that the only chance of winning now was the powerful ram of the dragon ship. As long as it could hit the Black Ark, the enchantment of the ancient magic would be enough to split the Black Ark in half. Frigates kept trying to land on the deck of the Black Ark. The Lothern Sea Guards put up their shields and rushed to the city wall with firm steps to fight the Black Ark pirates in close combat. Although these attacks were all in vain under the powerful firepower suppression of the Black Ark, they successfully attracted most of the crossbow firepower. Looking at the dragon ship getting closer and closer, Rohan gritted his teeth, took out a small blue pill and swallowed it, while shouting, "The Black Ark pirates and Silver Mist Guards go to clean up the landing frigates, and other crossbows will attack the dragon ship first." More and more crossbows aimed at the dragon ship and fired, but the hard hull made of starwood easily withstood the crossbow shooting. Yana hid in the cabin, looking at the old captain standing on the deck commanding the rudder, looking at the other party's elf skin that was dry due to long-term exposure to the sea breeze, and shouted, "Stop it. Our job is to take away Our job is to eliminate Durachi and their evil pirates. Do you know how many casualties a large Black Ark like this can cause in the next war?" The old captain ignored Yana. As the captain of this dragon ship, he had participated in the sea battle with Laksha Fallen Heart 1,000 years ago. The commander at that time was also like Yana, thinking that the Black Ark of God's blessing of the evil party, which was severely damaged in Laksha at that time, could not pose much threat to Ulthuan and let it go. Unexpectedly, the skilled and daring Loxa turned around and returned to Ulthuan, looted the outer islands, left countless villages in ruins, and then left. This was the pain in the hearts of the old captain and many at a navy. They believed that it was their failure to force the pursuit that led to the destruction of countless civilians. Since then, the old captain has been studying the combat methods of the Dark Elves. With his fierce combat and full of revenge, he was promoted to the captain of the dragon ship. Now, a large Black Ark lacking heavy firepower is heading south. If we don't destroy the opponent now, what kind of disaster will it bring to Ulthuan when the opponent installs magic turrets in the future? Exclamation mark. Prepare to charge. For Ulthuan. For the Phoenix Court. The old captain held the rudder with both hands, his eyes fixed on Rohan on the deck of the Black Ark. The armor of the Lord of Fear on his body made him want to kill the opponent himself. Seeing the opponent's posture, that was enough to cut the entire Black Ark in half. Rohan was also ready to fight. The magic power in his body was madly poured into the guidance ring, trying to block the opponent with the magic shield. The sails of the dragon boat were open to the maximum, and the elf oarsmen at the bottom of the boat used all their strength to paddle, increasing the sprint speed of the dragon boat to the maximum. The eyes of the two captains were fixed on the attack angle of the dragon boat, anxiously waiting for the result. Boom. The ancient runes on the dragon blade directly smashed Rohan's magic shield, and the huge backlash of the disappearance of magic power directly made Rohan unable to hold back a sweet taste in his mouth. Then a violent shaking spread throughout the Black Ark, and the Durachi were tripped by the sudden vibration, and a trace of fear flashed in Rohan's eyes. Didn't it defend? Exclamation mark. Then Rohan hurriedly climbed up, looked at the place where the dragon boat hit, and then breathed a sigh of relief. Because Rohan risked his life to overdraw his magic power, the magic shield still succeeded in slowing down the dragon ship's sprint speed. Although it crashed into a gap nearly 100 meters long, fortunately, it did not damage the main body of the Black Ark. Seeing that the dragon ship was temporarily unable to speed up due to the charge, Rohan naturally could not miss the opportunity to hit the drowning dog, and excitedly ordered, "Quickly seize the opportunity. Aim all the weapons that can be used for long range at the dragon ship and fire." The gunners who came to their senses turned their guns and aimed at the dragon ship that was slowly moving away, shooting crossbows one after another, destroying the opponent's sails and crew. How could the remaining Asur frigates around watch the dragon ship being shot at? They came to the dragon ship and launched a suicide attack on the gap that was knocked out by the Black Ark. These crazy Lothern Sea Guards shouted Maslan is supreme while launching a boarding operation against the Black Ark, trying to destroy and obstruct the shooting of the crossbow guns. Rohan drew his sword and knocked away the Lothern sea guards who climbed onto the deck and could only watch the enemy's dragon ship sail away. Forget it, I suffered a loss in silence. Let's leave after dealing with the Asur who landed on the dragon ship that was moving away. Yana had already walked out of the cabin. She had been hiding in the cabin during the previous battle. Looking at the corpses on the ground, she sneered at the old captain. When I get back, I will publicize your act of seizing power in the court. Do you know? Knock her out. What? Before Yana could react, she felt a pain in the back of her head. In a trance, she looked behind her and saw the cold face of the young noble who had tried to please her before. After watching the sailors drag Yana onto the lifeboat, the old captain looked at the immature but determined faces of the silver-helmeted nobles around him and asked, "Do you dare to charge again?" "Of course, we are the bravest warriors in Mathurin. How could we be afraid of the sea and death?" The young noble's face was full of relief, as if what was waiting for him was not death, but a journey. The reason why he wanted to please Yana before was to get more supplies for the fleet, but now it seems that no supplies are needed. "Captain, the dozen barrels of Imperial gunpowder you asked me to put in the cabin in advance seem to be useful." Chapter 56. Suicide? It's glorious. Breakout in the direction of Hagrid's Hall. The battle on the Black Ark continued. The Lothern sea guards who boarded the ship formed small circular formations and fought the pirates in the dead corners where the crossbows could not shoot. Rohan returned to the castle to recuperate. The backlash from the ancient magic made his body weak and he had to rest. Moreover, the dragon ship in the distance was not sure what bad ideas it had. It followed the Black Ark like a pervert, making it impossible for Rohan to rest at ease. Due to the damage to the deck, the speed of the Black Ark also decreased. At this speed, it would take at least half a day to reach Hagrid's Hall, which was hundreds of miles away. "I need to rest. If that dragon ship attacks, wake me up." After telling his personal soldiers to wake himself up, Rohan lay down on the bed in armor, drank a bottle of recovery potion, and closed his eyes drowsily. In his dream, he seemed to see Isabel learning magic under the guidance of Lady Mist, and Aereo in Grand Town dealing with documents with a headache. These scenes really scared Rohan. The backlash of ancient magic made him have many strange fantasies, but also made his consciousness clearer than ever before. But then, Rohan was pleasantly surprised to find that he could see himself learning rune magic decades ago in the illusion. Most importantly, he seemed to be able to resonate with his former self, and the brains of the two bodies could review the dry knowledge that he had not learned before. Just when Rohan was about to review the rune magic and alchemy he had learned in his dream, the voice of the system completely interrupted Rohan's fantasy. "Warning. It is detected that the host is under the influence of unknown magic, and the energy reserve is being checked. Sufficient energy, repairing system loopholes, eliminating the influence of magic." "What? No. Wait a minute." Realizing that the system was going to eliminate his dream, Rohan was shocked and tried to stop the system's self-repair function, but it was useless. Rohan could only watch the dream gradually distorted. Damn. Lost a good way to speed up cultivation. Rohan looked at the dream that was about to disappear with some reluctance. After all, who wouldn't want a way to double their learning speed? Moreover, the system did not detect the energy of Tsinch magic. There is no doubt that everything just now was the influence of the elf magic in ancient times. Rohan can try to control and use this method. Just as Rohan was helplessly looking at the vortex that was swallowing up his dreams, a voice suddenly came from his ear, which completely confused Rohan. Ding. Feature Curse of the Horned Rat is activated. Curse effect plus 50%. Warning. The vulnerability is strengthened by an unknown force and cannot be repaired. Trying to assimilate unknown magic. Assimilation successful. The system unlocks a new function, Dream Replay, which allows you to learn skills you have seen in your dreams. The duration depends on the magic power in the host's body. Rohan? Exclamation mark. Before Rohan could react, he felt that the whole world was collapsing rapidly while he was sleeping. Then Rohan opened his eyes in a daze and saw the handsome face of the bodyguard. Seeing that Rohan finally woke up, the guard excitedly put down the hand that was shaking his shoulder and said, "My lord, you finally woke up. I have been calling you for several minutes." "Yes, my headache tells me that you have been shaking for several minutes. How long have I slept?" Less than an hour, my lord. The lookout just reported that the dragon ship is moving towards the Black Ark, and it is expected to meet in 10 minutes. Rohan touched his swollen head. Although he wanted to study the new functions mentioned by the system, it is obvious that the threat from the dragon ship is greater. On the Acer dragon ship, Yenna's hands and feet were tied, but she had no intention of struggling, because she was about to get away from the group of crazy people on the ship. From the eavesdropping just now, she already knew the goal of this group of naval forces that disobeyed her. First use the ram to hit the damaged part of the Black Ark, and then detonate the large amount of gunpowder hidden in the cabin, to blow the Black Ark into two. Looking at the old captain who was directing the soldiers to prepare for the boarding battle, Yenna's beautiful face was a little distorted, and she couldn't help but screamed, "You crazy people. Don't you know that the dragon ship can no longer be built? If you blow up this ship, you will be the sinners of the kingdom. Let me go now. When we return to Ulthuan alive, I will help you apply for a position on the best dragon ship. Turn around and go back to Ulthuan." However, no sailor paid attention to this crazy woman. They were all busy preparing for their last battle. The old captain looked at the damaged dragon ship with a kind look, and his hand gently stroked the smooth starboard plank, as gentle as stroking his own child. As an old navy, who has fought on the sea for 2000 years, he has not been the captain of this dragon ship for a long time, only 500 years. But in these 500 years, he and his soldiers have long regarded this ship as the most important family, so except for the life raft prepared for Yenna, no one carried life-saving equipment. Today, they will return to the embrace of the Lord of the Abyss along with this great warship from the ancient times. The young silver-helmeted knight came to Yenna, looked at her with disdain, and said nonchalantly, "Of course we know that the dragon ship is a treasure that cannot be replicated in Ulthuan, and we shouldn't do this. This matter is the fault of the Witch King. He burned the starwood forest, where the dragon ship was built. The wood there was the best starwood in Ulthuan, but it was all gone." "Then why don't you let me go?" I said, "as long as... But that large Black Ark is also a miracle that the evil Witch King cannot replicate, isn't it? Although the number of existing dragon ships is far less than that of the past, the number is still far more than that of Druk's Black Ark. This led to every large-scale naval battle. Acer could defeat Druk's Black Ark fleet with a slight advantage in numbers. And now, the opportunity to severely damage or even destroy a Black Ark is right in front of them. How could they give up? Seeing Yenna with a face full of resentment, the silver helmet knight didn't care at all. He walked forward with an arrogant step, slapped her in the face, grabbed Yenna's hair and laughed. "You know what? I've had enough of your insults to the navy along the way. Now you just sit here honestly and watch our blood and tears. If you really want to defend Ulthuan, you can't rely on an idiot princess like you who only knows how to engage in court struggles. P.S. There is a vote in the book circle. If there is any fantasy movie or TV series you want to watch, you are welcome to discuss it in that post. There are cute high elf sisters and Slaanesh dark elves waiting for you." Chapter 57. The Final Boarding Battle. On the dragon ship, all the Acer elves raised their shields and spears and stood ready. The Lothern sea guards on the arrow tower bent their bows and aimed their arrows at the approaching Black Ark. The silver helmet knight looked at the life raft drifting farther and farther on the sea, and sighed to the old captain who was steering the ship. "If all princes and princesses are like Princess Yenna, I think we will never be able to destroy Dorichi. Don't give up hope, child. No matter what the future will be like, at least we have tried our best here today." The old captain stared at the Black Ark and shouted to the crossbowmen on the bow, "Crossbows ready. Attack the crossbows of the Black Ark first. Fire." Peng. The magic crossbow arrow with blue light flew towards the Black Ark. Just when it was about to hit the Reaper crossbow on the deck, it was blocked by a magic shield of the same blue color. Damn it. It's that Lord of Terror again. The old captain couldn't help but curse. After the previous exchange of fire and observation, he already knew that Rohan could use a magic shield. Keep shooting and consume the strength of the Dreadlord as much as possible. Everyone else, go at full speed. With the advantage of range, the Eagle Claw crossbow cannon continuously fired magic crossbow arrows, shooting at the Black Ark, which could not fight back due to insufficient range. This was hard for Rohan on the Black Ark. After all, the crossbow arrows of the Eagle Claw crossbow cannon had a tracking effect. If he ignored the crossbow arrows it fired, the harvesters on the ship would be dismantled in a short while. It's really wretched. But fortunately there is only one, otherwise it would be a big loss this time. Rohan drank the magic potion, while using the magic shield, to catch the crossbow arrows shot from the opposite side. The two sides were like playing badminton, but overall the situation was still in Rohan's favor. After all, they would arrive at Hagrid's Hall in a few hours. If it was just this kind of intermittent shooting, he could still defend it. Just when Rohan relaxed his vigilance, the sails of the dragon ship suddenly opened, and the long oars at the bottom of the ship began to slide continuously, and the entire warship accelerated towards the Black Ark. Moreover, the shells of the Eagle Claw crossbow were also switched to split arrows. Rohan was not careful for a moment, and the split arrows hit the deck directly, piercing the chests of several soldiers. The observers on the lookout also sounded the alarm, and shouted to the unsuspecting crossbowmen, "The dragon ship is accelerating. Get ready for battle." On the dragon ship rushed to the Black Ark in one go. The old crew kept turning the rudder, and the whole dragon ship was accelerating to surpass the Black Ark, and then turned to crash into the Black Ark. The Navy took the rope, and boarded the deck, ready to jump onto the Black Ark at the moment of the collision between the two ships, to buy time for the second collision. Whoosh! The crossbow attack from the Black Ark quickly covered the dragon ship and the surrounding sea area. The old captain at the stern did not show any fear on his face, and continued to drive the dragon ship, to crash into the Black Ark. Rohan, who was far away on the Black Ark, saw the fearless old captain at a glance. After all, they had met each other in the first collision before. The old man, who had met Rohan once before, was staring at him intently, even though the black crossbowmen around him had already aimed their crosses at him without blinking. Rohan met the old captain's gaze without fear. It was just a competition of who could stare the longest, and who was afraid of whom. But at the same time, Rohan's hands were not idle. A dwarf rune was pressed on the deck by Rohan, and the purple lines instantly penetrated into the deck. Previously, in order to resist the dragon blade, Rohan suffered the backlash of the ancient magic. Although it seemed to be a blessing in disguise due to the curse of the Great Horned Rat, Rohan did not want to experience it again. Therefore, Rohan decided to use a precious steel rune, which could strengthen the outer deck of the Black Ark to be as indestructible as steel. On the dragon ship, the Lothern Sea Guards were shooting a rain of arrows, trying to shoot the crossbowmen who were shooting at the dragon ship, and the black crossbowmen also rushed to the deck, constantly shooting at the dragon ship that was getting closer and closer. Looking at the dragon ship that was less than 100 meters away from the Black Ark, Rohan held the bulge on the deck tightly with his hands, and warned the soldiers around him, "Damn it, be careful of the collision." Boom. The dragon ship directly hit the side of the Black Ark, and because of the old captain's skillful operation, this collision just happened to overlap with the previous collision position. The dragon blade fiercely cut the deck of the Black Ark. Although the steel rune successfully blocked part of the impact, the enchantment of ancient magic was not so easy to block. Crack! Rohan fell to the ground due to the impact. He only heard a sound of rocks breaking, and the screams of the surrounding crossbowmen. The deck is cracked. Damn it. The Aesir Navy has boarded, and is ready to fight. The dragon ship is leaving. It wants to charge again. Rohan hurriedly got up from the ground, and saw hundreds of Aesir Navy rushing to the deck with ropes and long ladders, fighting with the Black Ark pirates who were covering the retreat of the crossbowmen. The crack that was nearly 100 meters long had disappeared, replaced by a terrible deep pit that was 500 meters long. Seawater was constantly pouring back into the pit. The culprit of all this, the dragon ship, was moving away from the Black Ark, obviously wanting to launch another collision. Many Durachi warriors were swallowed by the sudden huge crack. They wailed and fell into the gap, and finally disappeared in the sea with the surging waves. Those Durachi who barely grabbed the stones were glad that they had escaped, but they did not notice that the Lothern Sea Guards were aiming at them with their bows and arrows. How brave. Use the rope to pull up the one who fell into the crack, and the others are ready to fight back. The magic shield flew out of his hand in an instant, blocking the top of the crack, while Rohan directed the rescue, while drawing his sword, and leading other soldiers, to attack the landing Aesir. Shoot! The Lothern Sea Guards formed a shield wall on the deck, and the soldiers in the back row used accurate bows and arrows, to shoot the nearby crossbowmen. They had already forgotten their own lives and deaths. buying time for the old captain. To make a second collision was their responsibility to survive. Rohan naturally couldn't let them succeed, so he used his sword to cut through the defenses of the sea guards and ordered the crossbowmen, fire at the dragon ship. It can't hold on for much longer. Chapter 58 Heavy damage. Quick. Kill all the Asur who landed. Shoot the dragon ship. It's coming. The dragon ship is sinking. We are going to win. Boom. Hagrid's Hall. Harbor. Rohan slowly opened his eyes, but he saw an unfamiliar ceiling. The sound of seabirds in his ears showed that he was already on land. Rohan looked around and found a completely unfamiliar room. Judging from the decoration, it should be a room in a castle, but it was obviously not the Admiral's castle of the Black Ark. What happened? Touching his dizzy head, Rohan began to recall what happened on the Black Ark, and then realized that his Black Ark seemed to have been blown up. In Rohan's memory, he was fighting a fierce battle with the Lothern Sea Guard on the Black Ark, and Asur's dragon ship was gradually sinking to the bottom of the sea after being bombarded by thousands of crossbows. Just when Rohan thought that the war was about to belong to him, a strange huge wave lifted up the dragon ship and pushed the huge ship, which was originally several hundred meters away from the Black Ark, directly to the side of the Black Ark. Then, a violent explosion directly engulfed everything around, and Rohan only remembered that he seemed to be protected by a gentle white light, and then he fainted. The power to protect himself should come from the statue of the Lady of the Mist. After all, the enemy has boarded the Black Ark, and they will pay more or less attention to the situation here. Mathurin. This huge wave that pushed the dragon boat over must be the power of Mathurin. Damn it, how is my Black Ark now? After confirming that his body was fine, Rohan climbed up from the bed, but his weak body made him unable to stand, and he fell to the ground. Hearing the movement in the room, Anj walked in outside, hurriedly helped Rohan up from the ground, and asked, "My lord, you have been unconscious for almost a week. Do you feel uncomfortable?" 1 week? Where is this? How is the Black Ark? After being helped to the bed by Anj, he took the cup of water from the other party and asked anxiously. He remembered how tragic the last explosion was. Sure enough, Anj's face froze, forcing Rohan to drink a sip of water to calm down. What he said next almost made Rohan faint again. "This is Lord Hagrid's Hall. As for the Black Ark, it was seriously damaged. The explosion caused the crack to extend nearly 1 kilometer. The sorceress said that it could hold on and send us back, and it didn't break on the spot. It's simply a miracle. What about casualties? It's not good. More than half of the soldiers were affected by the sudden explosion. 600 soldiers were killed on the spot. Those who fell into the cracks and were shocked to death are still being counted, but cough cough cough. Get out." Anj didn't dare to say anything more. At this time, Rohan's eyes were red and his whole body was shaking. Anj had to honestly pick up the cup of water that fell on the ground and left the room. After Anj left, Rohan fell into the quilt, trying not to let his crazy shouts be heard. Anj sat outside with his knees hugged. As a former shadow, he could not understand the so-called comradeship, but he could fully understand Rohan's feelings. After all, the Silver Mist Hunters, who were Rohan's personal soldiers, had been following Rohan. At the moment of the explosion, the flames also enveloped them. Fortunately, the Blessing of Rajlia was activated at that time, saving 25 Silver Mist Hunters including him. Otherwise the entire Silver Mist Hunters would probably have been killed on the spot. And those comrades who were not protected by the Lady of the Mist were miserable. Wrapped in the holy light, they could only watch their companions beside them being burned to death, and they were powerless. The powerful perception given to him by the elves allowed Anj to easily hear Rohan's screams covered in the quilt, but he just sighed and covered his ears to maintain the dignity of his superior. After an unknown amount of time, Rohan, with a calm face, finally opened the door, staggered out and asked Tuang, "Is this Ashalian's territory?" "Yes, my lord." After Lord Ashalian learned that you were injured on the way to the front line, he arranged a room for you in the castle. Aang brought a cloak for Rohan to block the covetous eyes of the maids around him. At the same time, he brought a plate of steak and asked, "My lord, the Witch King and Lord Morathi are now in Hagrid's Hall. Thanks to our assistance, the desolate fortress was successfully defended. The Witch King hopes that you will go to see him after you wake up. He will probably reward you. Really? Let me eat something before going. I'm still too weak now. Rohan, who had calmed down his good mood, grabbed the steak with his hands without any image and went back to the room while wolfing it down. The juicy steak quickly filled the emptiness in Rohan's stomach, but it could not quickly replenish Rohan's physical strength. After washing up, the weak Rohan did not put on the armor of fear, but changed into a set of casual clothes, and then went to the room of the Witch King under the leadership of Ange. On the way, Rohan saw many Naga and blackguards standing guard. Only some of them were familiar faces. It seemed that the battle on the front line was also very tragic. When he came to the door of the room that once belonged to Asherian, Rohan looked at the sturdy guard at the door and couldn't help but curiously asked, "Kaku? It's me. Are you Rohan? You have become much weaker." Kaku's unique deep voice came from the white special armor. This blackguard, who is known as the strongest in 100 years, has a loyalty and honesty that is inconsistent with the outside world compared to the Dark Elves. Rohan rolled his eyes. He didn't have the energy to argue now, so he asked, "I was injured. I heard that the Witch King wanted to see me." "Yes, but now the Witch King is discussing the next battle with other lords, so you need to go to the reception room next door and wait." Hearing this, Rohan rolled his eyes again, asked Ange to act as a guard at the door, and then he entered the reception room alone, holding the wall. Looking at the empty reception room, Rohan came to the window alone, looking at the rare green woods outside and several black arcs docked in the port, and couldn't help but sighed in a low voice. "It's been 100 years, and this is the first time I've seen such a beautiful scene. Yes, handsome boy. This is also the first time I've seen such a handsome elf." Just as Rohan was admiring the beautiful scenery outside, a touching fragrance suddenly came from behind. Before Rohan could react, he was horrified to find that he couldn't move. Then, Rohan felt a pair of hands reaching into his clothes and touching him. "If you don't mind, can you tell me your name, handsome boy? I'll put a beautiful picture in the post for reference. P.S. There is no shyness. Please feel free to watch." Chapter 59. The Temptation of the Slaanesh Leader. Rohan, who was captured by the Vitals, tried to resist, but the magic power that bound him was like a rope, making the already weak Rohan unable to stand. The unknown sorceress behind him looked at the weak handsome boy in front of him, couldn't help licking her lips, hugged Rohan from behind, and asked in a charming voice, "Now, tell you, the great Phoenix Queen, who are you?" An indescribable fragrance came into Rohan's nose. As an alchemist, Rohan immediately identified the special ingredients contained in it, and struggled in fear. According to the other party's description, Rohan naturally guessed that he might have fallen into the clutches of Morathi, the supreme sorceress and the leader of the Joy Cult. What should I do? I can't beat her now. Should I resist, or obey her honestly? Rohan, who was held in Morathi's arms, closed his eyes tightly and didn't speak. Although his body was bound, he could still ask for help from the Lady of the Mist in his heart. "Rohan, boss, help me. Your lovely believer is about to be defeated by the evil Slaanesh demon, Rajlia." In the previous naval battle, Rajlia did not take the initiative to help Rohan, because there were soldiers she had guided on a Sir's dragon ship at that time. But Rajlia still paid attention to the battle, and at the end of the battle, when Marslan helped the dragon ship crash into the Black Ark, she rescued Rohan. Rajlia, who had watched Rohan return to Hagrid's Hall, thought that everything was fine, and her consciousness left the Black Ark and returned to the Temple of Iris. The great demon of Slaanesh has the power of chaos spread so strongly that even the great demon can enter and leave the world at will. Rajlia's consciousness quickly descended to the vicinity of Rohan. At this time, she was even ready to bless Rohan to become a living saint and fight against the invasion of chaos together. After absorbing the power of faith from another world, the strengthened Rajlia was confident that she could defeat the great demon and resist part of the chaos corrosion of Slaanesh. However, after seeing what happened, Rajlia immediately left the room with a red face, cursing, "Rogue. Are you going to be overpowered by the great demon of Slaanesh? I think you seem to be quite happy." In the room, Morathi saw that Rohan did not dare to resist, and her actions became more and more unscrupulous. Rohan was forced to ask for help in his heart. "Save the child. Madam, this female demon's perfume has the smell of herbs from chaos corrosion. If she really succeeds, I will fall into Slaanesh. Rohan had never seen chaos corrosion herbs, because the Witch King did not allow Morathi to spread chaos corrosion in his territory, which was one of the reasons why he expelled Morathi. But Rohan could still feel that there was an uncontrollable pleasure that was slowly pulling his soul into an abyss, which made him terrified from the bottom of his heart. In the past, Rohan could use his magic power to compete with this force, but now his weak body could not withstand the torment, so he could only desperately ask for help. He didn't want to fall into Slaanesh. Rohan used to think that Slaanesh was just a simple cease, but after seeing the miserable state of the slaves who were corrupted by Slaanesh, Rohan made up his mind that he would never touch chaos in this life. Because in Rohan's view, Slaanesh is not the god of joy and pleasure at all, but a thorough drug dealer. At the beginning, Slaanesh would constantly give believers pleasure, making these ignorant believers more and more depraved, until they could no longer live without the blessing of Slaanesh. Then, Slaanesh would reveal his ugly face. In order to drive believers to complete its goals, Slaanesh would deprive believers of all pleasure, let believers fall into endless emptiness, and become more crazy. Unless believers can complete the tasks arranged by Slaanesh, those who are deprived of pleasure will never be able to experience any happiness and perception. In this case, Slaanesh is like a drug lord who controls drug addicts with drugs, completely turning these believers into his slaves, and they will never be able to turn over. Is there anyone who is still willing to believe in Slaanesh? Hearing Rohan's request, Rajlia shot a holy light into Rohan's body, and then left without looking back. Morathi looked at Rohan, who was lying in her arms with a lingering look on her face. Seeing the pitiful appearance of the other party who was constantly trying to struggle, she smiled and said, "Don't worry, little guy. When you become a member of the Joy Cult, I will personally accompany you to have fun." What? A pure white holy light shone from Rohan's body, and Morathi instantly felt that the body in her arms that had made her unable to stop became hot, even burning her skin. Because the burning sensation was too strong, Morathi had to angrily throw Rohan in her arms, staring at the holy light on the other party's body, unwillingly saying, "What a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect that you actually have the protection of God. But I won't give up." Rohan knelt on the ground, feeling the magic power filling his body and the physical strength gradually recovering, and hurriedly got up, looking at Morathi, who came with bad intentions, vigilantly. When Rohan first arrived in the Warhammer world, he was almost persecuted by the cult of pleasure, so he naturally had no good feelings for the supreme sorceress in front of him, who was so poor that she had no clothes to cover her body. Morathi also felt Rohan's hostility, and her lips curled slightly. She grabbed a staff in her hands, just as the two were about to fight, and Jiz's voice came from outside the door and stopped everything. "My lord, is everything okay inside? The meeting of the Lord of the Witches has ended, and he is waiting for you to come over now." Since the houses in the Lord's Hall were made of special silent materials, Anj did not notice the movement inside. Seeing this, Morathi chuckled, blew a kiss to Rohan, and then turned into a puff of black smoke and disappeared, leaving only Rohan, who was still vigilant around. Anj outside the door was a little anxious. He didn't know whether he should break in. After all, this place was not far from the Witch King's room. What if he disturbed the Witch King? Just as he hesitated, Rohan finally opened the door, walked out with steady steps, and asked seriously, "Where is the Witch King?" "Ah, my lord, the Witch King is waiting for you in the main hall." "Smell your body?" "I know. I will go to see the Witch King now and clean it up." After using the Ring of Guidance to remove all the smell on his body, Rohan dared to enter the Witch King's room. He didn't want the Witch King to know that, while the Witch King was studying tactics in the room, Rohan was almost raped by his mother in the next room. P.S. God bless. Don't be censored, cack. Chapter 60 Rest. Chapter 59. Falling into the abyss of Slaanesh. I have tried my best to fish it out, but it has been blocked. Cack. After receiving the order from the Witch King to support Clark Arrand, Rohan asked Anj to take him back to the military camp, where the troops were, and prepared to return to Grand Town to rest. Because of Malekith's last words, Rohan had guessed that the other party already knew that he was almost asterisked by Morathi. Although the Witch King was kind-hearted and did not seem to hold Rohan accountable, Rohan still understood that he had to leave the Doomsday Forest as soon as possible to prove his innocence. Although the Witch King promised to contract the maintenance of the Black Ark and the magic turret, Rohan's current army was not enough to go to Clarkaran to participate in the war. Judging from the military cards displayed by the system, his army suffered heavy losses in the true sense. The military cards of a team of Dark Swordsmen and 2 teams of Black Ark pirates went dark directly. All 3 troops were annihilated due to the sudden explosion. In addition, the battle with the White Lion and the encounter at sea also caused casualties in all the troops, with at least nearly 1,000 Durachi soldiers killed. And without the permission of Ashalion, Rohan had no way to replenish his troops in the Hall of Hagrid, so he could only return to Grand Town and spend some time recruiting soldiers. After passing through the heavily guarded castle and the sparsely populated avenue, Rohan and Ange came to the barracks. Looking at their current 2,000 soldiers and the 25 surviving Silver Mist Hunters, they couldn't help but feel a pain in their hearts. Arriving at the big tent built for him, Rohan saw the Imperial sword and the armor of the Lord of Terror on the weapon rack at first sight, and said to Ange behind him, "The Witch King will send someone to help us tow the Black Ark back to Nagaran for repairs. This time we will return to Grand Town by land, so let the soldiers be ready." "Understood. Do you need me to prepare a carriage?" "Mist Lady has healed my body, just prepare a dark horse." After witnessing Ange leave, Rohan came to the weapon rack and subconsciously opened his arms, but suddenly remembered that the soldier who had put on the armor for him had died in the battle. "I'll remember this grudge first." As a last resort, Rohan could only put on the armor slowly by himself, his heart full of hatred for the old captain of Asur. After wearing the armor and the Imperial sword, Rohan walked out of the big tent, rode on the horse that Ange prepared for him, and led the team to leave the Hall of Hagrid. After arriving at the city gate, Rohan looked towards the castle and saw a terrifying black shadow hundreds of meters long flying away. The Witch King has also set off. It seems that the Norse monkeys are really causing trouble. When I have money in the future, I will buy a black dragon to play with. Looking at the huge shadow above his head that covered the sky, Rohan couldn't help but sigh. He also wanted such a majestic mount. But now, let alone black dragons, there is no place to buy even scorpion-tailed lions. It is estimated that we have to wait until the war is over, and the slave owners from the Titan Peaks can replenish the stock, right? When he thought of this, Rohan suddenly remembered the young dragon still imprisoned in the cabin of the Black Ark, and hurriedly asked Ange, "Where is the dragon in the cabin of the Black Ark? Was it killed by the explosion?" "It's not dead, sir. It was chained to the other side of the cabin, so it didn't suffer much damage, but it seems to have been in a coma. Unconscious." Hearing this, Rohan immediately became alert. Could it be that the next story is the traditional story of Tay, Earth, Rap Ball, where it suddenly evolves and awakens, hits itself, and then ascends? No, absolutely not. In order to prevent such a bloody story from happening in the future, Rohan directly said to the Dark Riders next to him, "Just in case, you go and ask the crew to use spears to cut a hole in the dragon's body, collect all the dragon blood for me, and make sure that the dragon remains weak." "Yes, sir." Several Dark Riders immediately turned their horses, and Rohan felt relieved. He ordered the army behind him, march at full speed and return to Grand Town within a week. Drachi. The soldiers began to trot one after another. The strong physique of the elves allowed them to maintain a state of forced march, but if they were attacked suddenly, their physical strength would be quickly exhausted. 1 week later, with Rohan's caution, the team finally passed by a patrol of wood elves without any danger, and returned to Grand Town unscathed. After entering Grand Town, Rohan opened the system panel, and was pleasantly surprised to see Dario's achievements during this period. Grand Town, Level 2 Town Population 2333 Taxes 2450, Basic plus 500, Level 2 Iron Ore plus 400, Slave Output plus 250, Buildings, Dark Elf Manor, Assembly Hall, Recruitable, Black Crossbowman, Shield, Desperado Bandit Den, Recruitable. Shadow. As expected of Dario, he has developed so well that it is completely beyond my expectations. Rohan excitedly entered the Lord's Hall, and then saw Dario, who was processing documents. He hugged his neck and shouted, "My dear adjutant, I miss you so much. Do you know that during this period of time, I have lost my hair just to process documents? My lord, my hair. So I decided that in the next period of time, I will leave the official business to you. I believe you can do better." Okay. Hearing this, Dario could only helplessly touch the top of his head, which was becoming increasingly thin. Although elves will never worry about being bald, Dario doesn't want to have a cyberpunk ponytail like Shadow. Looking at the somewhat dirty armor on Rohan, and the equally dusty Yang and others outside, Dario couldn't help but ask, "My lord, I have heard about the naval battle. People now praise you as an outstanding admiral, but where is your black ark? In order to reward us for our victory in the battle, the Witch King decided to help us repair the black ark and the magic turret, so it was taken away by our king." Rohan never mentioned the explosion of the dragon boat. After all, he didn't want others to know about such a shameful thing. He has already recorded this grudge in the system's little notebook. One day, he will go to Ulthuan in person to vent this hatred. PS. Chapter 59 has gone cack. I will try again in a few days. Chapter 61. Molasses Battle. It only took 1 month for Rohan's troops to complete the replenishment and training. Due to the extremely high death rate and sacrifice rate of Daruchi, most of the soldiers added to the army were children in their 20s and 30s, and they did not have much practical experience. After getting the equipment, these dark swordsmen who were eager to gain glory on the battlefield quickly grew into excellent warriors with their natural killing instincts and the constant teachings of veterans. After joining the Legion, the Dread Spearmen will begin to learn the power of discipline and cooperation from the army. In the future, they will become the iron wall at the front of Rohan's army, and those newly appointed black sharp crossbowmen, relying on the natural sharpness of the elves, do not have to worry about the accuracy at all, but start training how to hit the most targets in the shortest time. Since the next enemy is the wood elves, in order to deal with the possible tree people, Rohan also specially asked people to buy thousands of incendiary bombs from the Sigma Empire from Karen Care. The interior of these iron bombs is filled with alchemical secrets shared by the dwarves to the Empire, which can cause a large sea of fire the moment they land. Rohan came to the training ground in the suburbs, and smiled as he watched the Dread Spearmen who were constantly training how to use incendiary bombs. In the field, Dario, who was wearing strange iron armor, kept fiddling with the sniper rifle in his hand, aiming at a target 200 meters away, and then pulled the trigger. Bang! The crisp sound of the musket resounded throughout the training ground, and the wooden target located 200 meters away was smashed to pieces by the lead bullets of the sniper rifle. Seeing this scene, Rohan couldn't help but applaud in surprise, and came to Dario's side, curiously looking at the Renaissance-style musket in his hand, and asked, "Is this the strange musket from Hawk's territory of the human empire that you told me about a month ago?" "Yes, sir. You also know that my strength is not good, so I decided to use external forces to make up for my strength." Dario excitedly showed Rohan the strange armor on his body, and Rohan discovered that there were actually 8 imperial bombs hanging under this set of armor. The chest was even more frenzied. 12 dwarven pistols were hung in a holster, and on the table next to it were all kinds of strange muskets that Rohan couldn't name. "My lord, please open it. This is a rapid-fire musket used by humans. You just need to turn the front barrel and keep pulling the trigger." Pa 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 pa. A huge rock in the distance was directly smashed into pieces under Rohan's surprised eyes. This musket stopped spitting fire snakes after firing 16 times. And this, a shotgun from a short dart. There is also something called an optical sight on it. You just need to put this ring on the target. Pa. Dozens of tiny steel balls instantly embedded in the tree trunk not far away, and countless branches were knocked down by the sudden rain of bullets, and fell to the ground. Looking at Dario, who was still unsatisfied, Rohan looked at the disassembled wooden box next to him. It seemed that his adjutant was going to be a musketeer. Looking at Dario, who was constantly showing off his musket in front of Rohan, Ange, who had been watching for a long time, couldn't help but sneer. "What's so good about the weapons of these short-lived people and short stacks? Our black sharp crossbowmen can also easily hit a target 200 meters away." Hearing this, Rohan was about to stand up and refute with the theory of his previous life, but found that Ange was indeed true. "What are the advantages of muskets?" strong armor piercing ability, and it doesn't require too much training to use. But these things are irrelevant to all elves. All elves are born archers. Their keen perception and reaction ability far surpass other races, allow elves to spend hundreds and thousands of years to hone their war skills. As for armor piercing ability, the wizards of Asur and Eslay, wood elves, can enchant archers on the spot. Unless the local magic wind is exhausted, the armor piercing ability of the bow and arrow is no worse than that of the musket. And Daruk's crossbow is also amazingly powerful. Coupled with excellent archery skills, their crossbow arrows can easily penetrate the gaps in armor, and they don't even need to penetrate armor. Dario naturally understood this truth. He couldn't help but rolled his eyes at Angel and said, "Of course I know, but we don't have our own sorceress yet. When will you go to Goron to hire one? Come on, I can't afford to mess with those scary female monsters wearing bikinis in the middle of winter. Isabel is learning magic from the Lady of the Mist. Maybe soon, we will have our own sorceress. Although I don't know what magic Gradually will teach Isabel, it is nothing more than heaven related or life related magic that fits the identity of the Lady of the Mist, right?" Seeing that his adjutant and the captain of the guard were about to quarrel, Rohan hurriedly pulled them together and said helplessly, "If you have the time to quarrel here, why don't you think about how to face our damn compatriots? Elay's arrows are either poisoned or enchanted. Do you have any good ideas?" "My lord, I saw that Carol sells a new type of artillery called Hellstorm rocket launcher, which may be used to deal with Elay in the woods. What's good about human weapons? I think we can hire a female sorceress of the fire system, or find out if there are any war hydras willing to sell." Rohan listened to all the suggestions given by the two, but distant water cannot quench the nearby fire. After a month of delay, they no longer have time to go back and forth to Carol again. Forget it. If it's difficult, just don't do it. Anyway, he is not the commander-in-chief of the battle, so let Malas think about this headache. Go and gather the troops. By the time we reach Clarkeland, the battle between the elves and the wood elves will be over. Picking up a firebomb on the table, Rohan pulled out the fuse and threw it fiercely into the distance. The flames instantly engulfed the open space and spread to the surroundings. Looking at the orange-red flames, Rohan's mind gradually emerged the scene when the dragon ship crashed into the Black Ark. It was also the same orange flame that engulfed his 600 warriors. Let Eslay tasted well. This pain can't be borne by me alone. Obsidian Peaks, Storgtown attack. Adarachi, with a strange pink light flowing all over his body, was constantly waving a sharp sword, and the huge cold lizard under his crotch was gnawing fresh flesh and blood in the pile of corpses. The surrounding Dirachi warriors all looked at their superiors with horror. Just now, Malas' black blade burst out with a pink power that made them feel disgusted, killing the surrounding wood elves who were besieging him. Ang! A dragon roar was heard in the air. Malas looked up into the sky and cursed in a vicious tone. "It's these two bastards again. One day I will tear you off the dragon's back. P.S. In order to enhance the sense of immersion, I will put some beautiful pictures in the post from time to time. Who is in favor and who is against?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Twilight Sisters. In the dim sky, a forest dragon hundreds of meters long was holding two eagle claw crossbows, shooting wildly at the Dirachi on the ground. Fog. On the back of the forest dragon Sisenha, two beautiful wood elf sisters were constantly pulling the attack in their hands, and the arrows comparable to the power of the crossbow could easily penetrate the cold lizard knights on the ground. On the ground, Malas, riding on the back of the cold lizard, was not to be outdone. The long sword in his hand easily cut off the bodies of the deer knights, adding food to the evening dinner. Sister Nestra saw Malas, who was unparalleled among the wood elves on the ground, at a glance. The demonic power on the other side made her feel annoyed. "We must stop that guy, Rohan. I can feel the evil in his body. Wait for me a moment, Nestra. Let me play for a while." Sister Rohan ignored her sister's meaning. At this time, she was aiming at a seriously injured war hydra on the ground with the dusk claw, and then shot her own arrow. Swoosh, the dark yellow arrows turned into several streams of light, accurately hitting the 5 heads of the war hydra, causing them to scream in pain. Ha ha ha, look at what they are like. Rohan looked at the 5 ugly heads twisting and turning excitedly, and black poisonous blood splashed out from their wounds like gorgeous fireworks. Rohan, why do you want to add to its pain? Looking at the wailing war hydra, Nestra looked at Rohan with dissatisfaction, and then pierced the heart of the dying hydra with the claws of dawn. Seeing that his sister was angry, Rohan curled his lips and said indifferently, "Why are you so angry? That ugly twisted monster is originally a dirty creature corrupted by chaos. It is precisely because it is corrupted by chaos that we should give them a quick death and let their souls be free, instead of killing them like you did. Yes, 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 you are right. Shouldn't we go find that demon now?" Seeing that his sister seemed to be lecturing, Rohan hurriedly stopped her and pointed at Malas, who was still unparalleled among the wood elves, and said, "That guy is almost going crazy. We should stop him quickly." Looking at Malas, who was emitting evil light all over his body, Nestra had to stop arguing with Rohan, patted the dragon's neck and flew down. Clarendit's a giant beast. I wanted so much. Looking at the war hydra as high as the city wall, and the black dragon and manticore flying in the sky, Rohan's mouth was even drooling. As the hometown of most high-level beast trainers, the number of giant beasts in Clarkland is naturally very astonishing. There are dozens of war hydras alone. It is said that countless large beast zoos have been built in the city. Whether it is the smallest worm in the Lustria rainforest or the largest abyss siren, you can find them here. Looking at the city in front of him, which is like a giant beast paradise, Rohan's face was filled with emotion. After 2 months, Rohan finally gathered an army of 3,000 people and came to Clarkland by land. Several Durachi officers came from the city wall, first compared Rohan's silver mist flag, and saluted Rohan. "Welcome, Lord Rohan. Lord Malas specifically asked us to come and greet you." "Thank you, soldier. Is Malas in the city?" "Yes, Lord Malas suffered a defeat in Storgtown some time ago, and is now resting in the city." Rohan could hear a hint of fear in the tone of the quartermaster. It seemed that the fierce battle had once again possessed Malas with Zakon. Thinking of this, Rohan couldn't help but sigh. Although he was not afraid of Malas, Malas was famous for not recognizing his relatives when he went crazy. He was not worried about himself. After all, he had a 35% special protection bonus and a full 77 points of melee defense. He could fight Malas until the end of time. However, Rohan was really worried about leaving his soldiers to Malas under command in this situation, so he took out a purse from his bosom and threw it to the quartermaster, saying, "Find a camp in the city for my boys, but stay away from the castle. You will lead me to find Malas later." The quartermaster took the purse, weighed it for a few times and nodded. After discussing with the attendant behind him in a low voice for a while, he smiled at Rohan and said, "Please rest assured, my lord, I will arrange the best camp and supplies for your army. Please follow me. I will take you to see Lord Malas." After letting Dario lead the team to the camp to rest, Rohan followed the quartermaster to the castle of Crackerland, ready to see what the current situation of Malas was. After bringing Rohan to the gate of the deserted castle, the quartermaster couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and said to Rohan with a wry smile, "My lord, Lord Malas is inside. Please forgive me for not going in." Looking at the quartermaster who hurried over, Rohan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Is it really that scary? As soon as he entered the castle, Rohan subconsciously stopped. The air was filled with an aura that made him uncomfortable, so much so that the guidance ring began to emit a faint blue light to protect his body. The blessing of Rajlia directly wrapped Rohan up, and a milky white holy light appeared around Rohan, dispelling the surrounding demonic corruption. Malas? In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of scarlet pupils staring at him, but then disappeared in an instant, making Rohan subconsciously think it was an illusion. Slowly pulling out the Shangfang sword from his waist, Rohan attached magic power to the sword body, and walked into the castle while self-deprecating. "I'm beginning to regret coming in. Curiosity really kills the cat. You're right. You really shouldn't have come in. Go to hell." Following the direction of the voice, Rohan felt a burst of air breaking in the air, so he quickly turned around and swung his sword to resist. The huge force instantly knocked Rohan back again and again, and this situation made Rohan take a breath of chaotic cool air. You should know that when fighting with White Lion, Alastair, Rohan did not retreat due to the opponent's heavy blows, but just kept slipping away from the opponent to keep a distance. But the blow from Malus just now actually made him, who had been alert for a long time, retreat several steps, which was completely beyond his expectation. Looking at Malus with a distorted face, Rohan pushed the sword in his hand towards him fiercely, and then flashed to the distance and asked, "Is this the power of the demon Zakan? Malus, are you surrendering? Malus? Ha 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 ha, that guy actually thought that your old chemical potion of King Bacon. Shut up, demon. And you, why did you come in? Are you looking for death?" Two different all came out of Malus's mouth. The former's hoarse voice like tearing made Rohan particularly unhappy, while the latter was acceptable. Chapter 63 Dream Replay. After inserting the sword into the floor, Malus took out a small blue bottle from his back and took a sip. Seeing the other party's cautious look, Rohan couldn't help asking, "Why don't you just finish it? Isn't it better to just suppress Zakan?" "No. I still need his strength. Those two girls riding on the dragon's back occupy the high ground. My black dragon and manticore can't beat them at all." Malus came to the Lord's chair and sat down, cursing the Twilight twins, without any intention of finding a seat for Rohan. Rohan has long been accustomed to this kind of rudeness. After all, the Durachi are not a harmonious and friendly people. If Malus really takes the initiative to bring a stool for him, then it will be a big problem. Seeing that the other party seemed to have regained his sanity, Rohan put away his imperial sword, found a stool and sat down, and asked, "The Witch King asked me to help you. Is there anything I can do for you? Let me make it clear first, I will not hand over my army to you who are crazy. You are too abnormal now. I know. Damn bastard, don't bother me. I asked you to find a potion that can suppress Zakan. Why is there no news yet?" Rohan rolled his eyes, picked up a wine jug from the table and smelled it, then threw it aside with disgust, and retorted while flipping through the table, "What do you think is in your body? A great demon of Slanesh. I have to spend some time to help you find it, right?" When Malus was traveling to find power, he took a ring from a temple full of chaos warning signs, because of his greed. However, the ring was possessed by Zakan. The arrival of Malus broke the seal, allowing Zakan to successfully possess Malus. Since then, Zakan has been like a curse, tempting Malus to fall into the abyss of chaos and commit all kinds of heinous crimes. With the help of the alchemy potion of the Witch King, Malus was able to suppress Zakan in his body, but how could he give up this power that fascinated and even addicted him so easily? Badgy looking at Rohan who was eating fruit on the table, Malus felt annoyed. He picked up a wine glass and threw it at Rohan, cursing, "Get out. I don't care what you want to do, don't let me see you." "As you wish." After picking up the fruit basket on the table, Rohan left the castle. It was just a bad breath, and it wouldn't hurt. Anyway, Malus didn't say where he was going, so Rohan stayed in the city to rest. Fishing, no one would hate it, and there are rare tropical fruits in Nagaroth to eat, so what else do you need? After returning to the completed military camp, Rohan directly entered the tower specially prepared for officers, flew onto the big soft bed, and began to close his eyes and enter the dream. Due to the curse of the horned rat, the system accidentally acquired a new function, dream retracement. After carefully studying the function of this function, Rohan instantly realized that this was simply a super laboratory with cheats. In short, Rohan can control his dreams, and the world in his dreams is completely interoperable with the physical laws in reality. With this function, Rohan can even complete experiments in his dreams that he dare not do at all, because if he dies in his dreams, at most he will be mentally tired. Whenever he thinks of this, Rohan can't help but want to thank the horned rat. After all, in Rohan's view, this function is much more powerful than the entire system. When he died suddenly while playing games, a powerful person from another world gave him the ability to travel through the world. After that, the system came to bind Rohan. Such purposeful behavior made Rohan have little trust in the system, which is why Rohan did not use the system much when he first crossed over to the Warhammer world. 100 years ago, Rohan could have directly relied on the system's functions to sneak into the old world or the other world, just as the system merged and become a mountain king who only relied on the system. But Rohan chose not to. When he saw the evaluation on the system panel that was so low that even the slave rats cried, he closed the portal on his back in front of Malekith and asked the Witch King to start from the lowest level of soldiers. The long study and cruel competition were extremely difficult. Even the Witch King once asked him if he would send him a ship to leave Nagaroth, and the price was just to help him retake Ulthuan in the future. Rohan rejected this tempting offer without hesitation, and Malekith also increased his training without hesitation, and personally instructed him from time to time. Rohan slowly opened his eyes, and looked at the data on the system panel that was no less than that of an ordinary lord. He couldn't help, but murmured with a smile, "I'm not a greedy person. Why should I care about Ulthuan, or conquering the world? I'm just a fun person, a person." After closing his eyes and falling asleep, Rohan began to prepare for his rune experiment again. Under the books and guidance provided by the Lord Witch King, Rohan has been able to create 3 types of dwarven runes. Although they are all low-level runes, they are the most useful: Steel Rune, Secret Fire, and Speed Rune. There is no way. 100 years is still too short. Although the Lord Witch King asked me to serve him for 100 years, the things I can learn in 100 years are still too limited. Or, the things I should learn are too complicated. Other Dorichi can spend hundreds or thousands of years to hone their skills, but Rohan can only memorize all the things I need to learn, and review them slowly later. And, Dream Recall, is simply a gift given to me by the God Emperor. Loyalty, sincerity in the dream. Rohan was like entering the perspective of God, constantly directing his imaginary body to carry out various studies. Due to the different speeds of time inside and outside, Rohan can learn the knowledge he had forgotten. So that's it. The wonderful study life officially begins. Which forest, Rohan? Where have you been? In the woods. Nestra was anxiously looking for her sister, and the birds and squirrels in the woods were also helping her find her. Not long ago, she was about to go back to the room to criticize and preach to Rohan, but found that the other party actually left a small note with a ghost face drawn on it, and then disappeared. Nestra was very worried. Although due to the blessing of Queen Ariel, as long as one of them was still alive, the other could be resurrected, but she couldn't bear to let her sister mess around. No. Go find her quickly. P.S. What do you think of my writing, brothers? Can it be put on the shelf? My family wants to force me to be an accountant. If I don't make some achievements, this book can only be a pity cack. Chapter 64, Arena. Because Malus had been in the stage of illness, in order to maintain the balance of Zakon, Rohan did not receive any decent orders during this period. So Rohan, apart from sleeping and practicing, chased those trainers all over the street, hoping to fulfill his long cherished wish. Brother, are you selling the Hydra? No, get out. Wow, this Manticore is quite strong. I'll pay double the price. Go away, don't block the way. Rohan held the purse in his hand, walking on the street with grievance, looking at the dazzling array of giant beasts around him, and his heart was full of resentment towards the Witch King. You are amazing. You are rich. All the giant beasts of Nagaroth were bought by the Witch King. Even though Rohan is now a well-known Lord of Terror, no one is willing to sell Rohan giant beasts. The problem is that the giant beasts are handsome, and they can be raised on the Black Ark. When Rohan goes to colonize other worlds in the future, he can use the giant beasts to bully those worlds with lower military power. Kicking the stone on the ground onto the Ratman slave next to him, Rohan rode on the dark horse in frustration, ready to return to his camp. At this moment, a well-dressed Ratman with a noble collar around his neck suddenly walked out from the crowd next to him. It looked at the Dreadlord armor on Rohan with a lewd look, and its eyes revealed an unusual shrewdness. Your Excellency, Your Honor, my lord, I heard that you are looking for a behemoth. I know where there is a behemoth. Looking at the Ratman slave who rashly approached his master, a personal soldier immediately stood in front of him. After hearing the other party's intermittent Elvish, he drew his double swords and jokingly said, "Oh my god, this lowly slave can actually speak, and in Elvish?" Looking at the sharp blade with a faint blue light in the hand of the Silver Mist Hunter, a trace of panic flashed in the eyes of the Ratman slave, but when he thought of his master's promise, he gritted his teeth and said courageously, Great Lord of Terror, don't you want to own a dragon? It is the master of the sky and can." Ugh. The personal soldier's double swords were placed directly on the Ratman's neck, and the characteristic, holy rune, was directly activated, burning its fur. These days, following Rohan around the streets, the personal soldiers naturally knew that Rohan wanted to own a giant beast, so they let go of their swords, grabbed the Ratman's head and threatened, "If you dare to say anything in front of my master, I will gouge out your eyes and cut off your flesh piece by piece. Understand?" "Yes, yes. I promise you I won't say anything." After that, the Ratman was pushed in front of Rohan. Rohan had heard the words of the Ratman slave a long time ago, and asked curiously, "Who is your master? Why are you willing to sell the black dragon?" Malekith stole a lot of dragon eggs from Ulthuan, and relied on black magic to corrode them, and then ripened these dragon eggs into black dragons. Therefore, every dragon egg is particularly precious. Even the dragon eggs that have just been laid by the mother dragon will be strictly kept, waiting to be taken back by the sorceress of Goran to ripen. Because of this, Rohan did not think of finding a black dragon as a mount. After all, compared with the scarce black dragon, the manticore and the war hydra are more reliable. The rat slave was obviously just a messenger. After hesitating for a while, he said hoarsely in the not so fluent Elvish, "My master, he has a local arena that is specially prepared for nobles, and the price for the champion this time is a precious dragon egg." Dragon egg? Did you know that it is illegal to sell dragon eggs privately? Hearing that the arena dared to be so unscrupulous, the captain of the guard, Rohan, immediately became alert. "You know, this has violated the feudal laws of Nagaroth. It's strange to say that in the laws of Nagaroth, it doesn't matter if the armies of the Fear Lords fight privately with each other, or even frame each other in front of the Witch King. But it is strictly forbidden for heirs to kill their fathers, and lords are not allowed to assassinate privately, and can only duel openly, etc. All of which are completely inconsistent with the laws of the cruel society of Durachi. Really, Malus killed his father, and was wanted by the whole society. He was forced to flee for a while to seek power, and found Zakon. Zakon, hey. The private sale of dragon eggs is something that the Witch King has expressly prohibited. The rat slave had obviously anticipated Rohan's concerns. It rubbed its hands like a fly, and whispered with a lewd smile, "Look, where are the black dragon eggs now? They have been handed over to the Witch King a long time ago. Our dragon egg is a storm dragon egg that a trainer found in the depths of the Titans after much hardship." Storm dragon? After carefully recalling it, Rohan remembered that the so-called storm dragon is a full-egg flying dragon that lives in the Chaos Plains. Legend has it that once a storm dragon reaches adulthood, its lightning breath can tear through any wall or fortress. Even the scales of other species of the same species cannot resist this penetrating attack with vicious magic. Fortunately, most storm dragons are arrogant, even more arrogant than the most rude elves, and they always act alone, so the damage they cause is not great. "Are you sure that, if you become the champion, you can win a storm dragon egg?" Rohan's eyes lit up. That was a young dragon that could be trained from childhood. He was confident that he could live for thousands of years and grow up with this dragon. Good man. No matter which noble dared to compete with him this time, even if Malus, who was possessed by Zakon, came in person, Rohan would take drugs and win. Seeing that he had successfully aroused the other party's interest, the rat slave excitedly came to the front of the team and shouted under the vigilant eyes of the surrounding soldiers, "Please follow me, respected sir. I will take you to the arena. Yes. The master will definitely reward me well. Clarkland, underground arena, blood, glory, blood." The deafening shouts echoed in the spacious circular arena. Thousands of excited Durachi were waving their arms enthusiastically, enjoying the ongoing fight in the 4 chariots below the stage. On the chariot, a shirtless Durachi holding a spear stood on the chariot and stabbed the warhorse of a chariot next to it with a spear. Ululu, the unlucky warhorse, was pierced through the body in an instant. It wailed and fell to the ground, and even threw the Durachi's hand on the chariot behind it out. The rider who landed on the ground rolled over to avoid the spear that flew towards him, then picked up the spear, looked at the chariot that was rushing towards him, and rushed forward with a ferocious face. A stinky charge. The spear pierced directly into the body of the rider on the chariot, and he himself was hit against the wall by the out-of-control chariot, and was squeezed into a pulp. Seeing the two people dying in succession, the surrounding Durachi screamed crazily, wishing he could go down himself and join the fight. P.S. Thank you to Lily Bushi Lee for the 35,000 starting coins and 20 chapters of monthly tickets. I'm thinking of trying my best to add more chapters recently to repay you. Yes eyes. Chapter 65 Competition. After leading Rohan and others through the noisy crowd, the Ratman slave came to the door of what looked like a VIP room, saluted and introduced Rohan. My lord, this is it. My master, the owner of the arena, is inside. Ah, let's see who the real owner is. He can actually find the eggs of the storm dragon. The bloody smell around made Rohan a little excited. Back then, he was unlucky and was thrown into the training ground of Nagarand by the Witch King. There must be at least thousands of dual slaves who died in his hands, right? After showing his identity to the surrounding Durachi bodyguards, Rohan entered the room. As soon as he opened the door, he smelled a unique smell of Slanesh. Rohan instantly guessed the identity of the person inside and couldn't help rolling his eyes when Durachi, who was lying in the arms of several female slaves, saw Rohan. He struggled to get up from the crowd and looked at Rohan's face in disbelief and said, King of Cain, Slanesh, why are you here? Aha, it's you, American Englisher. You actually opened the arena to Krakarand? Rohan looked at the old acquaintance who was missing an ear with some surprise. After all, he got his first pot of gold from him. American Englisher was in charge of the Nagarand arena 100 years ago, and Rohan, who was only 30 years old at the time, was already a leader among civilian fighters. In this situation, American Englisher was attracted by Rohan's martial arts, and Rohan was attracted by the other party's ability to run an underground casino, so the two hit it off and decisively started to fake the game. It's a pity that this sweet little life didn't last long, and the third party Lord Witch King came. At that time, the Witch King heard that Rohan had lost several games in a row in the arena, and out of curiosity, he watched a game of Rohan, but that game happened to be a fake game. And then, nothing happened. American Englisher's casino disappeared overnight, and one of his ears was cut off by Kane's assassin while he was sleeping, which frightened him so much that he hurriedly packed his bedding and left Nagarand. Rohan, who was locked up in a small dark room by the Witch King, could no longer make money by betting on his own. He could only start learning the boring and difficult dwarven runes and participate in the relevant training of the Black Guard. Looking at the old acquaintance in front of him with a terrified face, worried that the Witch King had killed him again, Rohan hurriedly explained, Calm down, old friend, I came here for the dragon egg. Your Atman slave seems to be recruiting people for your arena and just called me here. Yes, Master, I don't know this lord at all. Please forgive my mistake. The Ratman slave also noticed that his master seemed to have some unpleasant relationship with Rohan, so he hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged American Englisher. Seeing that Rohan was indeed not sent by the Witch King to capture him, American Englisher finally breathed a sigh of relief and replied while putting on his clothes, I did receive a storm dragon egg some time ago, but many great lords already have adult black dragons, and small lords also have scorpion-tailed lions, so there is no need to start training from dragon eggs. Oh, yes, everyone already has a behemoth, and everyone has a bright future. Rohan felt like he was about to roll his eyes up to the sky. Why did he feel that the behemoth that he had been longing for was just a common commodity in the hands of others? After putting on his clothes, American Englisher took out a form from the table, looked at Rohan and asked, Old rules, 1v1 competition, no armor or runes or other external force and magic equipment are allowed. Everything depends on combat skills. The last one alive will get a storm dragon egg and a reward of 5,000 gold. I know, so when does the competition start? After lunch tomorrow. You can only use the weapons provided by the arena. When the time comes, come here and my Ratman slave will take you to change equipment. Okay, I'll go back and prepare. Looking at the soldiers outside the door who were staring at the fighting in the arena, Rohan sighed. It was the familiar formula and the familiar selling of himself. The next day, the underground arena on the high platform, American Englisher held a megaphone and gave a pre-speech to the cheering audience in the arena. Welcome to the arena. Today is another new day. The arena is happy to bring you more blood and killing. Let's start now. The audience of Durachi does not need any long speeches, just bloody killings to make them feel that the ticket is worth it. Besides, what is more exciting than the fight between nobles? Rohan walked into the venue with bare arms and 2 long spears. His exquisite face instantly captured the hearts of the young women in the arena. Huh? You ask where the girl went? Of course, she was on the way to becoming a young woman. Telling a little known fact, the relationship in Durachi society is that men keep self-control, while women can go out and date everywhere. If men cheat, women must follow the tradition. You date 1, I date 10. At the other end of the venue, a noble who looked relatively young held a giant sword in his hand and looked at Rohan across from him excitedly. Since everyone can see the list of opponents before the game, he naturally knows that his opponent is Rohan, who has recently become famous on the battlefield. As long as he cuts off the opponent's head, all the glory Rohan has now will belong to him. Go to hell. The young man rushed directly towards Rohan, and the giant sword in his hand kept slashing at Rohan, trying to end the battle as quickly as possible. Rohan raised his eyebrows slightly. The experience of fighting for 100 years has already taught him that saving physical strength is the most important thing in a battle. After inserting a spear into the edge of the field, Rohan also raised the spear and stabbed at the young man who was rushing towards him. The young man was full of disdain in his heart. When he was about to chop off the spear in Rohan's hand with the giant sword, Rohan directly pulled away and turned the spear in his hand to stab the opponent's thigh. It should be said that he is worthy of being a noble son of Durachi. The attack that ordinary humans can hardly avoid was directly picked away by the young man with the giant sword, but Rohan took the opportunity to scratch his handsome face with the serrations of the spear blade. You bastard. I'll use your skull as a bowl. The young man kept swinging the giant sword, trying to split Rohan's body in half, but Rohan always managed to dodge with the smallest amplitude. Young man, do you want to know what the power of close combat defense close to 80 is? The serrations of the spear kept leaving scratches on the young man's body, but these minor wounds were not enough to move the young man. He just wanted to make the mocking smile on Rohan's face disappear. P.S. Let's write about Pand first. By the way, does anyone read Pand? Chapter 66 Pride and Prejudice. Come on. Boy. Hey Rohan dodged the young man's giant sword and kept teasing him, making the already manic young man even more annoyed. On his body, dozens of fine scratches were constantly bleeding, making him look as scary as a bloody man. Druki on the field kept cheering. Although it was not as exciting as the passionate fight they imagined, Rohan's bloodletting tactics still made them feel satisfied. After keeping the opponent for more than 10 minutes, Rohan looked at the young man in front of him who was already panting and couldn't help shaking his head. This is a noble duel. Elegance, cruelty, and skills are what the real VIP audience like to watch, and the young man who started to chop with a giant sword will not be allowed to duel with nobles next time even if he wins. Vulgar and short-lived people like to watch fighters chop each other with big knives. Druki, who is a natural warrior, pays more attention to the fighting skills with fighters. Rohan swung his spear like a Latin dancer, and the young man had no choice but to retreat. Unexpectedly, Rohan aimed at the young man's calf and stabbed it hard. The spear instantly pierced the young man's calf, and the young man fell to the ground in pain. Then Rohan grabbed the long handle and pulled it out, and the bones and meat were hooked out by the sharp barbs. The young man fought back desperately and cut the spear that Rohan had pulled out into 2 pieces. Then his legs softened and he fell to the ground. Looking at the young man who was powerless to resist, Rohan dropped the useless spear in his hand, raised his right hand high, and shouted to the audience with a smile, "Judgment! Kill him! Kill him!" The audience stood up and shouted, unanimously pointing their thumbs down at the wailing young man. A trace of fear flashed in the young man's eyes, and he begged Rohan hurriedly, "Please. My family will give you a lot of money, as long as you let it go." Puff, a brand new spear flew out of Rohan's hand like a javelin, and the powerful force directly penetrated the young man's head, and then nailed it to the wall with the remaining power. The headless corpse slowly fell to the ground, revealing a dagger hidden in his hand. Obviously, the young man so-called begging for mercy was just to wait for Rohan to get close and deliver a fatal blow. How could Rohan give him this opportunity? The reason why he brought 2 spears was to use one for fighting and the other for long-distance execution. As a Dorichi warrior who has been in the arena for decades without relying on the system, Rohan always remembers the most important lesson: a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. The arena was quiet, and then there was a burst of applause from the noble viewing stand, and then all the audience applauded excitedly. Elegant. So elegant. Bloody, cruel, and full of cunning. This is a truly excellent Dorichi. After saluting the audience around him, Rohan turned and entered the opened iron door, entered the preparation room, and met other contestants with hostile faces. Well done, Lord. You killed your prey, but I don't know if you will become the prey yourself. Haha, thank you for your compliment, but even the most skilled hunters can make mistakes sometimes. Damn it. If you have the guts, come out and fight. After passing these fighters who kept talking nonsense, Rohan put on the clothes handed to him by his personal soldiers, looked at these little nobles with disdain and said, "Are you good at fighting? What's the use of fighting? To be a noble, you must have power and background. Which family are you from? My name is Jerome, and others call me Brother G. If you want, you can also call me Poisonous. I can bear it." The chosen fighter came to Rohan with a proud face. He didn't know Rohan, but his family was one of the most noble families in Krakarand, so he was ready to show off. The faces of the nobles around him were also full of arrogance. As local nobles with big families and big businesses, they were qualified to be proud. Unexpectedly, Rohan gave his personal soldiers a look, and more than a dozen enchanted crossbows were instantly aimed at the slave guards next to all the noble fighters present, and then pulled the trigger. Bang 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 bang. The slave guards never expected that Rohan would suddenly kill them, and they were shot in the head before they could react, and they all died. Those noble fighters also looked at their fallen slaves in shock and anger, and did not expect this to happen, and they all drew their weapons and prepared to fight. Seeing that these guys were so ungrateful, the adjutant Dario who came with them directly pulled out 2 pistols and shot at the legs of the 2 noble fighters who wanted to fight back. Bang bang. RRR my leg. My family will not let you go. Kill me if you have the guts. The young man who called himself Poisonous fell to the ground, covering the gunshot wound on his leg, looking at Rohan with murderous eyes. However, in Rohan's view, this was just like a little manticore with its hair standing on the side of the road, and it was even a little cute. Crouching down and gently patting the face of Poison, looking at the fierce look in his eyes, Rohan couldn't help but taunting. "So it's Little Beg-san. Arsehole. Wait for me. You want the dragon egg, right? I'll wait for you in the last round." After leaving the preparation room, a group of thugs from the arena had already gathered outside the door, obviously attracted by Dario's gunshot just now. Looking at the thugs who surrounded him, Rohan took out the seal of the Lord of Fear and cursed, "Get out and wash the ground for me." The leading thug obviously knew that this was a conflict between nobles, so he hurriedly asked his subordinates to make way, and then watched Rohan and his group leave arrogantly. The crowd who came to watch after hearing the news dispersed when they saw that there was no fight, and continued to watch the bloody fight below. After all, it's not that they haven't seen more arrogant people before. For someone like Rohan, who just killed a few slaves, it wouldn't cause much waves at all. Rohan hummed a little tune and walked back to his camp with an arrogant pace. As for being afraid of offending people, please, this is Nagaroth. In the noble circle of Dorichi, either they are his own people who have interests with him, or they are enemies. There is no middle ground. Obsidian Peaks hiss a wild hydra is biting the relatively fresh corpses on the battlefield. After all, the food in the mountains is not abundant. The battlefield full of corpses is a rare feast for it. Whether it is the corpses of the elves who died in battle, the remains of the manticore full of arrows, or the corpses of the same kind that exude a foul smell, they are just pieces of meat in its mouth. Badgy the 5 heads of the hydra that are constantly gnawing, did not notice that in the clouds, a huge figure hundreds of meters long is rushing towards it. P.S. I will try to see if I can add one more chapter today. You also know that I'm famous for not keeping drafts, so I can only grit my teeth and do my best cack. Chapter 67 Broken Arm. In the next few days, Rohan continued to participate in duels, and soon killed most of his competitors, and came to the 3rd place on the list. About the resentment of falling to the third place CAC, due to legal restrictions, Rohan was not worried that he would be assassinated by those nobles, but he still took his personal soldiers on the road every day and kept his weapons with him at all times. After all, according to the routine seen in the previous life, shouldn't a dude jump out and point fingers at him at this time and then be slapped in the face by his pretense? It's a pity that Rohan waited for many days, but still did not see the so-called long ocean plot, which inevitably made him a little disappointed. But fortunately, the most brutal situation of Molas's participation in the arena did not appear in the arena, but the previous little scoundrel did not know what drugs he took and suddenly became a little stronger in the battle. Of course, after directly splitting the opponent in half with a halberd, Rohan also confirmed that the opponent was indeed just a little stronger. In the arena, the last fight was going on. Rohan rarely used a halberd, but instead used her standard Durachi rapiers. The opponent was a very experienced noble warrior. He looked at the expressionless Rohan warily, raised his arm shield and long whip, and pointed it at Rohan and said, "Someone is willing to pay for your life." Really? I've always been curious about how much my head is worth, so if you don't mind, can I ask how much the other party paid? Rohan kept swinging the long sword in his hand to create sword flowers, while using it to confuse the opponent's sight and chatting. "You don't need to know. Be careful. The barbs on my whip are coated with poison. Even a slight cut will take your life." The gladiator looked at Rohan, who was constantly circling in front of him, licked the handle of the long whip that was not stained with poison, and looked at Rohan with a crazy face. This was already the last game of the noble duel, but Rohan didn't relax much in his heart. Instead, he moved slowly and cautiously to find a suitable attack angle. Arm shield and long whip. Just seeing this set of equipment, Rohan already regarded the opponent in front of him as a strong enemy. Just a few decades ago, Rohan had witnessed a terrifying woman who believed in the Lord of Blades, Ildrazo, also using an arm shield and a long whip to kill 3 chaos demons in the arena. And that woman was none other than the Slaughter Sisters. Although Rohan didn't know whether the man in front of him had any relationship with the Slaughter Sisters, this did not affect Rohan's caution after seeing this set of equipment. Looking at Rohan, who kept wandering around him, the gladiator directly swung a whip and whipped at Rohan. Rohan turned sideways and grabbed the opponent's whip with the rapier in his left hand. He ignored the spikes that pierced his left arm and rushed towards the opponent like a reckless man. "What?" The gladiator was shocked and hurriedly tried to retract the long whip, but Rohan directly grabbed the barbs on the whip with his left hand and then continued to stab the opponent's chest with the rapier. Looking at the rapier stuck in his chest, the gladiator's face was full of disbelief. His eyes were fixed on Rohan's gradually blackening left arm, and he murmured, "Are you crazy? In order to kill me, you actually want to die together? You are talking about this? Don't worry, you will die miserably, but I won't then." Rohan pulled out the spike stuck in his left arm, as if nothing had happened, and under the shocked gaze of the surrounding audience and gladiators, he cut off his entire left arm. Warning. You are in a serious state of injury, and your health will continue to drop. Rohan simply ignored the system alarms that kept coming from his ears. He completed an unprecedented experiment in Dream Replay, and now is the time to experiment. Seeing Rohan in the arena kicking away his broken arm without a care, the audience around him fell into a brief silence, and then shouted wildly, "God of Cain. There is such a crazy Durachi. Love it. This is a real warrior. He will fight, even if he loses his arm. He is a dreadlord. I want to join his army." Obviously, Rohan's crazy behavior successfully aroused the bloodthirstiness of all Durachi's audience. They cheered and watched Rohan chop off the gladiator's head, and then staggered back to the Iron Gate. In the empty preparation room, the personal soldiers had already gathered here, and saw the weak Rohan staggering into the room, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Dario rushed forward and tried to wrap Rohan's arm with gauze, but Rohan pushed Dario away, took out a bottle from his clothes, and smiled at the anxious soldiers. "Brothers, let me show you what technology and hard work are." Rohan bit off the bottle cap with his teeth, took a look at his serious injury data on the system panel, and swallowed all the dozens of pills in the bottle. Before Dario and others could react, they saw faint white light coming out of Rohan's wound. Rohan felt that his body was sublimated, and a steady stream of vitality was injected into his body. On the system panel, Rohan's blood bar, which had been at the bottom, was also filling up rapidly. It's so cool. In the surprised eyes of everyone, a white new arm slowly grew out of the wound. Rohan simply felt his new arm and nodded with satisfaction. Outside the door, a personal soldier was holding Rohan's short arm in a hurry, pushed open the door anxiously and shouted, "My lord, your arm can still be reattached, eh?" Looking at Rohan's flawless arms, the personal soldier blinked his eyes, was so scared that he quickly threw away the broken arm in his hand, patted his chest and said, "It's really an illusion. It seems that it is caused by my recent mental tension. My lord, what's going on? How did you grow a new arm?" Dario was a little nervous. This was the rebirth of a broken limb. As far as he knew, even the Witch King did not have the ability to grow a new arm. Could it be that his lord had surrendered to Nurgle? Looking at the various expressions on the faces of the bodyguards around him, Rohan finally couldn't help laughing out loud. He took out a bottle of blue pills and introduced them. "You also know that I'm a man who cherishes my life. How could I go into a battle without any preparation? Take it. This is the reward for your loyal guarding during this period." Each bodyguard was given a small blue pill, and Dario, as the adjutant, was given 3. He carefully put them in a small bottle and asked, "Sir, let me introduce to you, this is my highest achievement in alchemy, the Pill of Rebirth. P.S. There is still one chapter to go. Come on, old G." Chapter 68 Business. Since obtaining the Dream Replay function, Rohan has been trying the primary life potion that he won in a lottery a year ago. After all, instantly restoring 18% of the health is too amazing, so Rohan naturally hopes to learn how to make such a potion. Although Rohan has never found a material that can replace the Blue Mountain Flower, with the help of Dream Replay, he successfully made a pill with the essence of dragon blood in the heart of Chimera. Rebirth Pill. Immune to negative buffs of the whole body. Restores 0.8% of the total health per second, lasting for 1 minute. The effect can be stacked. Note that it is the total health and all negative buffs. Therefore, whether it is a serious injury effect or a poisoning attack, or even the curse of the horned rat, Rohan can take a rebirth pill to offset it. When Rohan saw his clone's broken limbs regenerated in the Dream Replay, he was so shocked that he couldn't speak, but then he reacted, "Good man, isn't eating one of these the same as slapping Isabella in the face?" Note, after Hammer 2nd defeats Isabella von Carstein, it will give the Rebirth feature, which was nerfed in Hammer 3rd. Emperor, woohoo, my rebirth. Seeing the soldiers curiously looking at the small pills in their hands, Rohan proudly introduced, "This is a good thing. As long as you are not dead, whether you are poisoned or have a broken limb, take one quickly and you will be able to quickly recover your combat effectiveness." My lord, are you sure this thing is really safe and not from Nurgle? Dario's heart was full of uncertainty. After all, this kind of thing was too outrageous. It was hard to imagine that this was actually made by this adult who was usually a little unserious. Seeing that his subordinates didn't seem to trust his masterpiece, the smile on Rohan's face gradually stiffened. "They didn't believe me?" Exclamation mark. In order to make the experiment a success, Rohan drank a lot of body anesthetics and used his own body to do experiments bit by bit. "You actually despise the elixir that he finally got?" Exclamation mark. After thinking for a while, Rohan made up his mind. It seems that he needs to set an example for them. Coming to Dario, Rohan asked with a smile, "Dario, you don't believe in my medicine so much, then are you willing to help me do an experiment?" Looking at Rohan, who was hugging him and smiling, Dario couldn't help but feel puzzled, and then assured in a firm tone, "Of course, sir, you can always trust my loyalty, eh?" Puff puff puff. Under the horrified gaze of the surrounding personal soldiers, Rohan hugged Dario's body expressionlessly, and the sharp dagger kept stabbing into the other's unprotected stomach. After being stabbed dozens of times, Dario fell to his knees on the ground, holding Rohan's arm weakly, his eyes filled with doubt and despair, and he murmured in a barely audible voice, "My lord, why? Don't worry, my adjutant. Close your eyes now, and feel it all." Seeing Rohan kneeling down and hugging the dying Dario, the soldiers around him retreated in fear, staring blankly at Rohan putting a rebirth pill into Dario's mouth. After an unknown amount of time, the soldiers looked at Dario, who was gently held in Rohan's arms, and couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Did the Lord really have the heart to stab his loyal adjutant to death? If the Lord is in a bad mood one day in the future, will he turn around and stab us? These soldiers were all veterans who had followed Rohan on expeditions to other worlds. They were all willing to sacrifice their lives to protect Rohan, but they died so casually. Just as the soldiers were hesitating whether to surrender to one family, Dario's fingers suddenly twitched twice, and then he raised his head suddenly. Ouch. It hurts. Rohan and Dario covered their heads, and they felt their heads buzzing. Seeing Rohan crouching with his head covered and Dario resurrected, the soldiers were stunned at first, and then hurried forward and excitedly helped the two up. Several impatient soldiers even started to strip Dario's clothes, wanting to see if the wound on his stomach had really healed. Dario, who had just woken up, was still a little confused until a bodyguard who looked a little strange started to pull off his pants. He hurriedly pushed away the bodyguards and shouted, "Jago, stop it, stop it." Knock knock knock. Just when the preparation room was in chaos, there was a knock on the door. American Englisher was holding a box, looking at everything happening in the room with shock. A poor Durachi was being pinned down by several strong men and having his clothes stripped, while Rohan next to him was covering his head, as if regretting something. Looking at this scene, American Englisher, who had just finished a melee, immediately thought of something wrong. He hurriedly put the box on the ground and explained, "Rohan, please forgive me for not knowing that you had this hobby. This is the dragon egg you won. You guys continue while it's hot. I won't bother you. I'm leaving first. You can't leave." Hearing this, the bodyguards who were still fighting pulled American Englisher into the room. American Englisher instantly shouted in horror, "No, I don't like this." Half an hour later, American Englisher left the room with a red face and heavy breathing, which made the thugs waiting outside exclaim, "The boss actually likes this?" In the room, Dario, who was stabbed to the ground for the second time as a demonstration, looked at Rohan helplessly and couldn't help asking, "Sir, why don't you demonstrate it yourself? Wouldn't it be more convincing this way?" "That won't work." Rohan refused. Dario righteously looked at Dario, who was a little confused on the ground, with a firm look, and answered firmly, "I'm afraid of pain." Hearing this, Dario felt his blood pressure soaring, and after a moment of silence, he slowly sighed. Looking at Dario, who looked depressed, Rohan patted his shoulder and comforted him. "Don't worry, my good adjutant, you helped me negotiate a big deal, and you will definitely get the benefits after the deal is done." Just before, American Englisher was forcibly pulled in and witnessed the amazing miracle of Rohan stabbing poor Dario again and seriously injuring him, and then resuscitating him with a pill. American Englisher, who has been running the black market and the arena for many years, immediately realized how much business opportunities this pill could bring, so he immediately started negotiating with Rohan. After half an hour of debate and coercion, the two finally reached an agreement. American Englisher is responsible for collecting materials for Rohan to make rebirth pills, and Rohan needs to provide 1,000 pills every month, with each pill priced at 100 gold coins on the black market, and the money earned is divided into 30% and 70%. Of course, Rohan gets 70%. Of course, this kind of private black market transaction must provide a portion of it to the Lord Witch King, but even so, Rohan still added an income of 50,000 gold coins per month for himself. PS. 1. Not a drop left, ORZ. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Storm Dragon. After returning to the barracks, Rohan has been trying to find a way to hatch the dragon egg he just got. Since most black dragon eggs are forcibly ripened by black magic, the hatched black dragons can quickly grow into adult dragons several hundred meters long. But the result is that a lot of black dragon's potential is consumed, resulting in the fact that the black dragon's strength and skills are generally not as good as those of Asur's dragons of the same size. For this reason, Rohan did not want to hand over his hard-earned dragon egg to those female sorcerers with ill intentions. After all, naturally grown ones are definitely better than those injected with inferior hormones. But in this way, Rohan faced another problem. He doesn't know how to hatch eggs. Do I have to sit on it? Or do I need to hold it in my arms every day? In the barracks, Rohan looked at the dragon egg placed in the blood pool with some distress. During this period, he had tried various feasible methods, but the dragon egg had not moved in his hands. Rohan, who had no other choice, even started to use the fantasy routine of dripping blood to recognize the master, trying to make the young dragon inside obediently come out. However, the blood had already flowed into a large vat, and he had taken several rebirth pills. But why was there no effect? Looking at his wrist, that was still dripping blood, Rohan could no longer bear it. After taking a pill, he prepared to wash off his own bloodstains. While getting dressed, he complained, why not just take a frying pan and eat fried dragon eggs? Maybe it can strengthen my yang or something. Can it really strengthen me? As if sensing Rohan's evil thoughts, the dragon egg in the blood pool shook gently, and the blood in the basin was being slowly absorbed by the dragon egg at an imperceptible speed. Rohan didn't know that his body, blessed by the Lady of the Mist, and the blood with a little magic flowing out of it, was a great tonic for the still developing dragon egg. He didn't even know that the magical blood had blocked the tracking magic on the dragon egg, causing a storm dragon far away in the sky to go crazy. Witch Forest Nestra, who learned the news about her sister, hurried to the flat ground. She stared at the wound on her sister's body with her almond-shaped eyes, and could not help but yell, "Rohan, what on earth is going on?" Rohan was covered with tiny scars all over her body. Her originally beautiful white long hair turned into a charred bird's nest. She looked miserable. Behind her, the forest dragon Cesina looked even more miserable. Not only were there bloodstains on his neck and chest, but even his dragon wings were torn in half. Hearing her sister scolding, Rohan's hand, which was tidying up her hair, froze. She turned her head and said carelessly, "Isn't this my favorite sister? I miss you so much, but wait a minute, I have to go first." "Hey wait." Nestra didn't want to listen to Rohan's sophistry. She directly grabbed Rohan's collar and dragged him to the tree hole of the two sisters in front of all the wood elves. Looking at the fine wounds on Rohan's body, Nestra felt a little distressed. After taking off Rohan's torn armor and clothes, she couldn't help asking, "What happened? Did you meet the demon-possessed Lord Durachi? How is it possible? I can't beat that guy, so I won't run away. It was a storm dragon that came out of nowhere and attacked us." Just like that, while Rohan was receiving treatment from his sister, he angrily recounted his experiences during this period. Over the completely destroyed town of Storg, a green adult dragon with a body size of nearly 200 meters was hovering, and the shadow of fear made the carnivores on the ground flee. Regarding the size of the dragon, at the request of many book friends, I finally ate the book again cack. Today is a good day for the wild hunter. Good day. Rohan, riding on the dragon's back, crossed his legs, humming a little tune, and looked at a wild multi-headed snake fleeing on the ground with interest. Because she was scolded by her sister during the battle, Rohan, who was in a bad mood, left the witch forest and went out with Cesina to hunt hydras. Voiceover, Rohan, why did you do this? In just a few hours, more than a dozen wild hydras have died from her dusk claw and Cesina's venomous attack. Seeing that stupid hydra on the ground actually tried to attack him with fire breath, Rohan's flaming red lips showed a cruel smile. Cesina did a somersault and easily dodged the flames. Then he floated in the air and slowly opened his bloody mouth, spraying the hydra below with venomous breath. Boom boom, there was a sudden thunder in the sky, and then a huge shadow suddenly covered Cesina. Rohan didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a dark cloud passing by, so he ignored it. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Rohan looked at the hydra being corroded by the poisonous fog with excitement. Its hard scaly skin had no power to resist, and it could only wail and watch its skin fester and die. The man in the dragon looked at the hydra twisting on the ground with interest, and did not notice the threat from the air. Suddenly, a sound of air explosion came from above his head. Before Rohan could react, he was suddenly knocked off the dragon's back by a violent shaking. After hearing Cesina's scream, Rohan immediately drew out the dusk claw from his waist, based on his experience, bent his bow, and aimed at the huge figure that suddenly attacked. Several blue magic arrows shot out instantly, like the giant arrows of a crossbow, deeply piercing the purple-black dragon that pounced on Cecina's back. Rumble accompanied by the dragon's angry roar. A lightning breath like a beam of light spurted out from the dragon's mouth, directly leaving a terrifying wound several dozen meters long on Cecina's chest. Ariel. Rohan then noticed that the person who came was actually a 300-meter long storm dragon, and compared to it, Cecina was just like a helpless child. The storm dragon didn't seem to notice Rohan. Just facing the aftermath of the lightning breath, she instantly felt her body numb. In just a few seconds, Rohan and Cecina were hit hard one after another. The forest dragon hurriedly caught Rohan and fled towards the witch forest. Rohan sat on the dragon's back and kept shooting arrows at the storm dragon that was chasing behind him, slowing down its pursuit. After running for most of the day, the wounded storm dragon gave up chasing Rohan and went away towards the Obsidian Peaks. Chapter 70 Warhydra. After listening to Rohan's story about his wonderful adventure, the usually gentle Nestora's face was already full of anger. On the one hand, it was because Rohan did not listen to her advice and went out to hunt the Hydra privately. On the other hand, she was angry because of the injuries on her sister. But Rohan did not seem to notice her sister's anger, but hummed and said unhappily, "I really don't know why that storm dragon is crazy, and that Hydra, sprayed by Cecina's breath, must have died in pain. How dare you say that?" Hearing that her sister did not reflect at all, Nestora slightly increased the strength of her hand until Rohan was in pain and snorted coldly. Seeing that the wounds on Rohan's body had all healed, and his beautiful white hair had returned to its former smoothness, Nestra retracted the green magic in her hand and asked worriedly, "Will the storm dragon you mentioned follow you to the witch forest and cause damage to the creatures around you? How is it possible?" "Don't worry, sister. Although Cecina and I were injured so badly, that stupid dragon was also hit by dozens of my arrows. I guarantee that it will need to sleep for at least a while before it can recover." Hearing her sister's concerns, Rohan wanted to raise her head proudly, but Nestra pressed it down directly. Looking at her sister's reckless appearance, Nestra sighed helplessly and said, "When will you be able to be more stable? If it weren't for you insisting on hunting the Hydra, this would never have happened. Think about it back then." The injury has healed. I should go see Cecina. I don't know how its injury is." When Rohan heard that her sister wanted to make a long speech, she decisively got up and put on her clothes, and then rushed out of the tree hole. Looking at her impetuous sister, Nestra sighed again. When will she be able to stop worrying? Clarkerand, mark it, all the scales are gone. What a miserable Hydra. I didn't expect it's still alive. Yes, it is said that the female Lord of Asray is hunting. The trainers have found several corroded wild hydras. TSK, 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 what a waste. It's no longer worth treating. Throw it to the arena for fighting. In the market, more than a dozen slave owners surrounded a newly tamed war hydra. Looking at the 5 drooping heads, they couldn't help but sigh. This hydra was the one that barely survived the previous hunt by Rohan, but it was in a very bad state. The 5 big dark red heads all drooped weakly, and most of the originally gorgeous green scales on its body fell off, revealing bloody skin and black corroded rotten flesh. Since it is not yet an adult, the hydra has only 3 short rings on its tail, symbolizing its helplessness as a fledgling young snake of only 300 years old. Shashasha, looking at the drooky slave masters surrounding it, the hydra could not help but shake its tail nervously, with its 10 pairs of big eyes filled with fear. It was just a child who had just lost its mother and went out to find food alone. When it finally found a battlefield wreckage and was ready to have a good meal, it was inexplicably sprayed with poison by a flying monster. It was in agony and went through untold hardships and finally survived the corrosion of the venom, but was tied up with ropes by a group of Druki riding chariots and captured in this place. Hearing the sound of the hydra shaking its tail, the slave master next to it whipped its exposed skin with a whip, and the whip directly hit its unprotected red flesh, making it scream in pain. Hiss. After putting away the whip, the slave owner hurriedly introduced it to the nobles around him with a smile. "Look how energetic it is. Just feed it for a few years, and when all the scales grow out, it will be a warlike beast again when sent to the arena." However, anyone could see that the cost of healing such an injured war hydra would probably not be cheaper than buying a new one, so they all left. Damn it, how can it be so worthless? Looking at the crowd that was gradually dispersing, the slave owner was a little depressed and wanted to swing the whip again, and then suddenly saw a purse thrown to him. The slave master took the money bag and weighed it for a few times, looking at Rohan and the audience with some surprise. After confirming Rohan's status as a lord, he couldn't help but remind him, "Respected sir, the money you gave is enough to buy an adult hydra. Do you want to consider waiting a few months to buy a bigger one?" "No, just this one. Anyway, I have nothing to do recently, so I'll buy it for fun." Looking at the sturdy war hydra in front of him, and the number of rings on its tail that symbolize age, Rohan nodded with satisfaction. Although he didn't know whether the rebirth pill would work on the hydra, Rohan didn't mind spending some money to treat a hydra with great war potential. Seeing that Rohan seemed to be a man who had no shortage of money, the slave owner hurriedly jumped off the chariot with the hydra, rubbed his hands, and came to Rohan, smiling and introducing, "My lord, this hydra is yours. Are you interested in seeing my other products? We can also provide manticores and do you have any in stock? If not, shut up. Good luck to you." Looking at the personal soldiers behind Rohan, the slave owner handed the whip to Rohan very obediently, then turned and left, while Rohan jumped on the chariot and started driving the war horse in front. In this way, Rohan took this poor, weak and helpless war hydra back to his military camp. On the way, many passers-by looked at the seriously injured war hydra with sarcasm, but after seeing that the chariot was driven by a dreadlord, they retracted their gazes. After returning to the military camp, Rohan took the suffering hydra to the idle giant beast fence, and then removed the rope hanging on the hydra. The freed hydra looked at the little man in front of it warily. A series of blows made it full of vigilance against any new things. After a simple look at the scars on the hydra, Rohan included this hydra in his military card, and a red military card instantly appeared on the system panel. Looking at the series of bottoming values on it, even Rohan, who claimed to be knowledgeable, couldn't help but sigh. It's a miracle that you can still survive after such a serious injury. Then he took out a bottle of rebirth pills, put one of them in his hand, waved to the boss of the 5 heads, and whispered, "Don't worry, little guy, try this, it will help your body." The snake head at the top flashed a trace of thought in his eyes. Although it couldn't understand Rohan's language, it could still guess what Rohan meant. After slowly lowering its head, the snake head sniffed the small blue pill in Rohan's hand. After licking Rohan's hand with its tongue, it opened its mouth in surprise. "Awoo, APS, so tired. I have been looking for the information about the twins for a long time, and finally I caught up cack." Chapter 71 Leaving. Rohan helplessly looked at his broken left hand and the multi-headed snake that was eating his arm, and his heart was a little broken. Since there was a dragon that was constantly bleeding on the Black Ark, Rohan could not spend much money to make the rebirth pill. But this does not mean that Rohan is willing to keep breaking his arms and legs. Seeing the multi-headed snake eating his body, Rohan felt a chill in his heart. He is not Sakamuni, so he naturally does not like to feed the multi-headed snake with his own flesh. After eating the arm with the rebirth pill, the injuries on the multi-headed snake began to recover slowly, and the numbness from the wound made the 5 heads of the multi-headed snake dance wildly. Rohan also took a pill, grew an arm again, and came to the side of the multi-headed snake, carefully observing the multi-headed snake's slowly recovering injuries. It seems that, because of the size, the rebirth pill does not have as great an effect on the multi-headed snake as it does on humans. Through observation of the system panel, Rohan found that the health of the hydra only recovered 20% in 1 minute, and it could not directly recover the normal health value like humans. The hydra looked at the recovered injuries and newly grown scales in surprise, and couldn't help but let out a joyful cry, and then looked at Rohan with greedy eyes. The newly grown left hand. "It's amazing, this arm has grown again. Could it be that eating this magical arm can restore its injuries?" Looking at the 5 big heads of the hydra approaching him, and the covetous eyes looking at his left hand, Rohan immediately reacted, retracted his left hand and shouted, "No, child, this is not for eating. This is it." Then he took out 5 small blue pills, and threw them high into the air in front of the hydra. The Hydra immediately stretched its head, and the 5 heads ate the pills one by one, and then lay in the fence, closed their eyes and fell asleep. The series of encounters since leaving the cave have already exhausted this 300-year-old child physically and mentally. After watching the 15-meter tall child slowly fall asleep, Rohan looked at the system panel and left with peace of mind. After returning to his own military camp, Rohan lay on the bed and said to himself with some emotion, I feel like I understand Lacus a little bit. These big guys are really cute, except that they are a little painful. Beast Lord Lacus is a famous lord of fear throughout the Dark Elves, and even in the distant Ulthuan and the Old World. It's not because of how strong he is, but because the giant beast army under his command is too terrifying. As an excellent Pokemon master, Lacus has almost successfully collected all the known animals in the Warhammer world, and even the Mount of the Witch King, the Black Dragon Seraphim, was cultivated by him. Rohan is particularly envious of the giant beast army that the other party controls. After all, who would not like a beast army composed of more than a dozen black dragons and war hydras, hundreds of various dinosaurs, and countless wolves? What's more, his army now only has 3,000 Durachi warriors, and the vassal army of the giant catcher world is so weak that it is not even worthy of being cannon fodder. If he can have a few giant beasts to keep the place in check, he will have a better chance of winning when conquering other worlds in the future. Standing up and coming to the somewhat dried blood pool, Rohan cut his wrist again, gently looked at the dragon egg that was absorbing his blood and said, you kid, you have to grow up quickly. I will need you to kill those damn demons in the future in the blood pool. As Rohan's fresh blood continued to flow in, the head-sized dragon egg began to tremble slightly, as if responding to Rohan. It was not until his blood bar was about to bottom out that the weak Rohan took out a few rebirth pills and ate them. Looking at the blood pool that was filled again, Rohan couldn't help but reveal a hint of self-mockery at the corner of his mouth. During this period of time, he had almost lost half a ton of blood, right? After I find a way to make a large number of rebirth pills, will I be more suitable to be the blood god than the one on the brass throne? As the blood bar rose, Rohan felt the fullness all over his body. He couldn't help but slowly closed his eyes and began to think about whether to seize the throne of the brass throne. 1 month later, in the castle of Clarkaland, Rohan slapped the table with his palm, looked at Malus sitting on the lord's chair, and asked with some dissatisfaction, so are we going to fight or not? I have wasted enough time here. Nonsense. As long as these 2 women are still here, this battle must be fought. Shut up, demon. If you don't want to fight, get out. Malus covered his head in pain, while constantly hitting the chair with his hands, and threw a transfer order to Rohan. In order to prevent the sneak attack of the Twilight Sisters, he has been possessed by Zakan for a month, but Aslay still doesn't seem to attack, which makes him very angry. During this time, Zakan tempted him all the time, trying to drag his soul into the abyss of Slaanesh. I was taught a lesson by my book friends, and now I change eating books to Slaanesh Kak. Rohan took the transfer order floating in the air, and after looking at the order to disband Rohan, a smile appeared on his face. It's so cool to go through the back door. Not only can you get out of the boring battlefield directly, but you can also continue your adventure in the other world. Damn it. Shut up, demon. Driving the painful Malus in the chair, Rohan took out a rebirth pill and said hesitantly, listen, man, although I don't know if this thing can alleviate the pain caused by demonic corruption, you seem to have no other way now. Do you want to try it? Why should I care so much? Now I'm trying my best. Upon hearing that Rohan might have a way to alleviate the pain of his soul, Malus immediately jumped in front of Rohan, snatched the pill from Rohan's hand and ate it. He didn't worry that Rohan would poison him. After all, no matter how miserable he was, could it be worse than being possessed by a demon? Unexpectedly, as soon as a pill went down his throat, veins on Malus' face began to pop out, and then he fell to the ground uncontrollably, wailing in pain. Chapter 72, Possessed by the European Emperor. Hearing the screams still echoing in his ears, Rohan directly broke open the gate of the castle and hurriedly ran towards the military camp. After hearing Malus' screams, several guards saw Rohan fleeing and tried to stop the suspect, but Rohan shouted while running, "Don't stop me, run." Malus seems to be completely possessed by the devil. Upon hearing this, the guards reacted quickly and immediately followed Rohan, throwing down their weapons and shields, and running out of the castle together. Hurry, hurry, our mission has been completed, go to Nagaland at full speed, we have wasted too much time. By coaxing the guards, Rohan returned to his military camp without any danger, and quickly left Krakarand with the soldiers, who had already packed their luggage. During this period, Rohan always dreamed that there was a giant dragon hundreds of meters long recovering from its injuries. It will attack Krakarand in the near future, causing Rohan's troops to suffer heavy losses. Although Rohan didn't know whether this dream was true or false, the deduction of dream replay had told Rohan that this was a battle with no chance of winning. Therefore, Rohan didn't want to stay and wait for death. As a fearlord who loved his soldiers like his own sons, he didn't want his troops to participate in such a meaningless battle. Sitting on the highest head of the Hydra, Rohan looked down at the surrounding vision and couldn't help but pat the snake head under him with satisfaction and said, "1K, a little higher." The huge snake pupils of the Hydra couldn't help but roll their eyes, but still raised their heads obediently and brought Rohan to a height of more than 10 meters. Since Rohan gave it a few rebirth pills, it has been staying in the giant beast fence to hibernate and shed its skin to heal its wounds. After more than a month of recuperation, it finally recovered from its injuries, and under Rohan's careful care, the whole snake became fatter. And Rohan also named the Hydra reluctantly, 1K. Under the temporary effect of the rebirth pill, Rohan finally got rid of the fate of being a non-African and successfully completed several rounds of regular time and space card pull, proving his identity as the chosen one of the European Emperor. Although there are still some mundane items, such as the ordinary swords made by the elf craftsman and the rune potions, that Rohan does not lack, the number is much more than before, and the price is also very low. Big horned rat, you are really a stinky rat who has done so many bad things. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was around, Rohan lay on the snake's head, leisurely basking in the rare sun, while looking at the 3 cards in his hand. Under the gaze of 1K's other 4 heads who looked at him like a fool, Rohan clasped his hands together and muttered to himself, "May the heavens and the earth help me, and may the red hand lady show her power." The card slowly floated up, and then a golden light suddenly emanated from one of the cards, causing Rohan to subconsciously squint his eyes and exclaimed, "Wow, a golden legend that has never appeared." After the golden light faded, Rohan hurriedly sat up and prepared to carefully examine these cards that he had never drawn. Language proficiency gold. Are you still worried about not being able to understand the languages of other races? This skill can quickly meet your requirements. Price: 50,000 gold. Lion's Tooth, the exquisite long sword used by the great Emperor Joffrey, suitable as a gift. Price: 200 gold. Frankie Phalanx * 90, a mercenary warrior from Shogun 2, Total War, who is proficient in using flintlock rifles and long swords in his hands. Price: 900 gold. Rohan's eyes were fixed on the first card emitting golden light. He did not estimate the price of 50,000 gold behind it, and crushed the card decisively. Hiss, so cool. Waves of unfamiliar knowledge poured into Rohan's brain, and the knowledge digested in an instant was integrated into Rohan's body, making his brain clearer than ever before. The dwarven words that once seemed a bit obscure and difficult to understand seemed to become particularly familiar, and even the dirty and lowly evil language of Varatman could be understood by him. After a long time, Rohan slowly opened his eyes, touched the cold scales of 1K under him, and sighed. What a terrible ability this is. You only need to pay money to get such perfect knowledge. It's even more treacherous than siege. Ding. Please rest assured, the system has been completely bound to the host's soul. We will prosper together and suffer together. The cold voice of the system came into Rohan's ears, and the words he said were so reassuring. If it was a newbie who had just traveled through time, he would probably have believed it long ago. But as an elf who has been in the Darachi society for many years, Rohan doesn't think the system will be so kind. The Witch King taught him a lot of things, the most important of which is to never believe that there will be good things that fall from the sky. When you get inexplicable benefits, the first thing you should do is not to be happy, but to reflect. Why is it yourself? Although he still couldn't understand the purpose of the system. Rohan still secretly hid this worry in his heart and continued to curiously hold the card of Flangy Phalanx Soldier and asked, where do these soldiers come from? Recruited from another world? Or simply trained out of thin air? Ding. These soldiers are the souls of soldiers who died in battle from another world. This system will send these souls to the clone bodies of this world. They will inherit the memory of this world and fight for you spontaneously. Archon behavior. I understand. So the function of your system is to make me the foregod's choice? After hearing the ability of the system, Rohan couldn't help but laugh at himself. What did he do? As for Con, he now travels to various alien worlds to plunder and kill. As for Tsinch, is there anything more terrifying than playing with souls? As for Nurgle, the rebirth pills he now possesses are so full of vitality. As for Slanesh, isn't he lusty enough as a Drukhar? After a serious summary, Rohan was horrified to find that his current behaviors can indeed be called a qualified chaos believer. This is really hard to explain. Forget it. The fourth scourge is the fourth scourge. Anyway, my goal is to stop the Damet as much as possible. So, GW is the culprit, right? Turning his head to look at his army of 3,000 people, Rohan couldn't help but feel a sense of deja vu of a heavy responsibility. P.S. Let's go to Penda in the next world. After all, the humans and elves of Penda are indeed strong. Considering that most viewers don't understand Penda, I will try not to write the background and just chop all the way. Chapter 73 Bad News. In the port of Nagarand, Rohan was looking at the trembling administrator in front of him with a serious face and angrily scolded, "What do you mean it's not repaired yet? Didn't the Lord Witch King say that he would repair my Black Ark as soon as possible? Why hasn't it been repaired yet?" The port administrator looked at Wanke and his guards behind Rohan in fear and said very aggrievedly, "It's really not that we don't work hard to repair it, Lord Rohan, but your Black Ark is too seriously damaged and Nagaran doesn't have so many sorceresses for the time being. If it was just a small bump like the previous one, the apprentice sorceresses in the port would naturally be able to solve it easily. After all, it was just a simple repair. The problem is that there are too many places on Rohan's Black Ark that need to be repaired. A full kilometer long crack and a large hole inside that was blown up. Such a complex repair project requires at least several high-level sorceresses to repair it day and night for more than half a month. Most of the sorceresses with this ability are now fighting on the front line. I don't know how many of them can come back alive, not to mention repairing Rohan's Black Ark." After hearing what the administrator said, Rohan could only sigh helplessly. After taking a reluctant look at his broken Black Ark, he turned around and left the port. After returning to the barracks, Rohan summoned all the captains and said to these somewhat tired soldiers in a depressed tone, "It seems that we need to prepare for a land battle this time when we go to the other world. Does anyone need to prepare anything? Sir, since we are going to a land battle, let's go to the world where Ms. Isabel is to recruit human servants, right? After all, the number of our Durach is still too small." Adjutant Dario was the first to make a suggestion. After all, he had followed Rohan to conquer another world and had some understanding of the general process of colonization. So he proposed, "And I think we should consider building a city on the Black Ark to recruit citizens. Last time, thanks to your recruitment of human servants, we were able to conquer the kingdom of Gus. Indeed, the last expedition was too careless, and many things were not taken into consideration. This time we need to prepare well." After hearing Dario's suggestion, Rohan touched his chin and began to think. Their expedition did lack a way to replenish its troops, which caused Rohan to be reluctant to let Durach warriors join the battle. Anyway, there is a war going on now, and many Durachi citizens whose homes have been destroyed should not mind finding a piece of land to live in the other world, right? After Dario wrote this idea down in his little notebook, Rohan looked at the captains in the big tent and asked, "For example, weapons and equipment, do you have any other suggestions? Maybe we can recruit a mage. After all, there is no long-range support from the Black Ark this time, and we can't bring many crossbows. Let's talk about it when there are suitable candidates in the future. After all, they are all outsiders, and it is not suitable for them to join the expedition." Although Rohan is very envious of those powerful big sisters, they are all more of his people after all. If they go to the other world to make trouble, he will have a headache. What's more, he is now more and more proficient in the control of rune magic, and with Wankei's blazing breath, it is still very easy to bully those low magic worlds. That's it. Anyway, there aren't many citizens to recruit in Nagaland right now. Let's go back to Grand Town first, and then go to the first world to recruit human servants. Watching the captains get up and leave the big tent, Rohan slowly slumped down in his chair and began to pray to the Lady of the Mist in his mind. Rohan, boss, your favorite lovely believer is calling you. With the experience of the first expedition, Rohan has figured out his own development path, which is to hold on to the long legs of the Lady of the Mist tightly and then lick them fiercely. After all, the last time I didn't meet the local gods in the world of Giant Catcher, it was all because of my good luck. But who can guarantee that I will be so lucky every time? After praying for a long time, Rajlia's consciousness finally descended into the room. She looked at Rohan, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground, and said, "My believer, I hope you can bring me some good news." "Yes, great, brave, and beautiful lady, your devout believer, I will convey good news to you. We are about to start our second expedition to another world." Rohan first boasted about the beauty of Lady Mist as usual, and then laid out his plans one by one. After listening to Rohan's government plan, a strange look suddenly appeared on Rajlia's beautiful face. After a moment of silence, she said to Rohan, Are you still going to the previous world?" "Yes, ma'am. I need to recruit vassal troops from that world. After all, we may encounter unknown enemies next." Rohan did not notice that Rajlia was wrong, but vowed, "Please rest assured, ma'am, I will spread your faith to those uncivilized barbarians, so that countless worlds will be bathed in the baptism of holy light." Thank you for your compliment, but I have some not so good news to tell you. I hope you won't be angry." Rajlia's somewhat low voice came from the void. For some reason, Rohan actually felt a hint of timidity in her tone. Exclamation mark. It shouldn't be like this. After possessing the power of faith in two worlds, the strength of Ms. Mist should be much stronger than before, right? Although he didn't know what happened, Rohan still patted his chest and assured, "Don't worry, beautiful Lady of the Mist. No matter how powerful the enemy is, I will not retreat. Unless I really can't beat him." After hearing Rohan's words, Rajlia's heart warmed, and she put aside her hesitation and told the reason for everything. "Some time ago, I was teaching Isabel how to use magic. She has a good talent, so I taught her how to use life magic. Isn't this good? And Albion also has black magic that can promote plant growth. After learning it in the future, she will be a powerful wizard." Rohan couldn't hear anything bad in Rajlia's words, but thought it was a good thing. He just lacks a means of replenishing members for large-scale treatment. When Isabel finishes her studies in the future, his expeditionary force will be even more powerful. The only question is, how to coax the innocent and lovely Isabel to accept these Tarachi compatriots of his? Looking at Rohan, who was expecting Isabel, Rajlia was silent for a moment, then slowly said, "Well, I advise you not to look for Isabel during this period. Since I'm guiding Isabel to learn life magic, I took a plant from the Temple of Iris and gave it to her to practice. But I didn't expect that her talent was so strong that she could communicate with plants. Life magic, rustling, the caster can talk to plants and rivers. Since most plants like to exchange gossip, they are quite well informed. She has learned from that plant that most dark elves have bad personalities. Now she puts a little man of yours at the head of her bed and pricks him with needles every day. P.S. The humans of Penda are not weak. They can fight against elves in the rain of arrows and wield two-handed swords to chop demons. They are much stronger than the Knights of Britannia. Okay. Open bracket, close bracket. Chapter 74. Return to Lion Lake City. Newly built military camp outside Grand Town. Rohan's face was full of sorrow. The bad news brought to him by Lady of the Mist had disrupted all his plans. Originally, he was planning to slowly gather the army and then take Isabel, who stayed in the Giant Catcher world, as well as the more than 10,000 human servants left for her. But now Isabel has completely known the cruel nature of the Dark Elves. Will she still be willing to help him attack the other world? Moreover, Isabel is the leader of the Kingdom of Cloist. As a queen who supports him in spreading the faith of Lady of the Mist, Rohan does not want to replace her unless it is absolutely necessary. But if it really comes to that, after thinking for a moment, Rohan stood up and took off his armor. After only wearing a silver-plated dagger on his waist, he walked out of the gate in a single piece of clothing and said to Dario, who had been waiting for a long time, "Dario, gather the army and enter the portal. Don't interfere with anything you do later. I'll go talk to Isabel first." Outside the military camp, 4,000 Durachi warriors were already ready to enter the portal at any time. For Isabel, her long-cherished fantasy of being an elf was shattered. Facing the cruel reality, Rohan didn't know what the other party would do. In order to be on the safe side, Rohan went to the main city of Malas, Haggraves, and recruited 1,000 soldiers under the pretext of Malas's order to expand the army. After hiding a few rebirth pills in his mouth, Rohan came to the front of the army, slowly raised his hands, and a faint purple stream of light began to appear on Rohan. Most of the old soldiers of Durachi who had experienced the first teleportation looked normal, but most of the new recruits had excitement in their eyes. As newly recruited elf warriors, they had never experienced dimensional teleportation in person, and this was their first time to go to another world. A purple dimensional crack slowly tore the surrounding space, and it became larger and larger, eventually forming a huge purple ring with a radius of 20 meters. "Pass quickly. Get your buds moving. Quick." Dario kept urging the soldiers to enter the portal, and 4,000 soldiers immediately filed in and trotted into the portal. Crossed Kingdom, Lion Lake City, elf residents in front of the statue of Lady Mist. Hundreds of devout believers are praying, hoping that Lady Mist can bless their families. Among this group of believers, there is a young figure wearing leather armor and equipped with a dagger. He is the boy who used to sell fruit. Since he witnessed the apparition of Lady Mist with his own eyes, he has become a fanatic believer. After joining the army, he is determined to become a knight who fights for the lady. The boy knelt on the ground like the believers around him and said in his heart, "Dear lady, I have decided to dedicate this life to you. Let me fight for you." Rumble. However, before the boy's inner prayer was over, there were bursts of roars from the open space next to him. Purple lightning flashed from the void, constantly tearing the surrounding space, and finally formed a dimensional crack. "Leave quickly, irrelevant people. All get ready." The human guards responsible for protecting the temple nearby immediately became alert and began to command the nearby believers to leave while drawing their weapons and waiting in full battle array. Some believers who carried weapons with them also drew their weapons and joined the ranks of guards. This is the temple of the Lady of the Mist. In front of the great statue, no demons or monsters can act recklessly. Empty, empty, empty. Neat footsteps came from the other side of the portal. This sense of oppression of the unknown surrounded everyone's heart, but no one retreated. Just when the guards thought that the legendary demon would walk out of the crack, a handsome figure walked out of the crack. His ice blue eyes swept through the crowd and asked in confusion, "What's going on? I don't know if there is any welcoming ceremony. Who can tell me what happened?" It's the elf. I was scared to death. I thought I was going to die heroically next to the statue of the Lady of the Mist today." Looking at these relieved human guards, Rohan turned his head to look at the statue of the mist next to him, and then he realized that he had opened the portal in the wrong place. Looking at the humans still surrounding him, Rohan quickly waved to them and said, "Everyone, leave here. The elves' army is about to come out. We are preparing for a holy war for the Lady of the Mist. Please don't disturb us." Did you hear that? They said they were going to have a holy war. Okay, let's leave here quickly, and don't disturb the elves from gathering their troops. The crowd of spectators around them dispersed, except for the boy who was selling apples before, who was holding the hilt of his sword, and stood there blankly, muttering, "Holy war, holy war." Looking at the boy who didn't know what he was doing, Rohan didn't pay any attention to him, but looked around in surprise. The statue of the Lady of the Mist has been built in Lion Lake City, which means that this world has begun to accept the faith of the Lady of the Mist. It seems that Isabel has not betrayed herself. After a while, 300 Silver Mist Hunters and 800 Silver Mist Guards were assembled, and more follow-up troops were also passing through the portal. As Rohan's vanguard troops, they were originally suitable for dealing with possible rebellions, but they didn't expect that the situation seemed to be peaceful. Dario sighed. He thought he could finally make a big move, but he didn't expect the situation to be so peaceful. He could only put down the grenade launcher in his hand and ordered the French phalanx soldiers behind him, "Put away your weapons. Do not fire unless I order you to do so." "Yes, sir." After hearing the order, these human musketeers in plate armor put away their flintlocks and formed a phalanx behind Dario. Cold knowledge, the phalanx of the Spanish phalanx soldiers does not mean that the soldiers are arranged in a square. The phalanx is a quantifier, and a phalanx is about 3,000 soldiers. They inherited human souls and only knew that they were human mercenaries from the kingdom of Tyrol. After being hired by Rohan, they swore allegiance to Rohan. Rohan looked at the other party's cabbage price of 900 gold, asked them to exchange it, and handed it over to Dario for command. Looking at the human palace that was becoming magnificent in the distance, Rohan took out a bottle of painkiller from his arms, raised his head and drank it, then smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect that there would be a day when I would have to rely on the self-torture tactic. I just hope it won't be too painful. P.S. In the next chapter, I will show you a whole life, so that you can see what true love is like blood." Chapter 75 Questioned Love. After eating a few rebirth pills, Rohan hid a few more in his mouth, and then he entered the palace with confidence. Along the way, Rohan saw all kinds of gold, silver and jewelry being used to decorate the hall, which made him wonder, when did this kingdom become so rich? Just as Rohan was looking around, a familiar figure came from not far away. It turned out to be the former knight commander of the Royal Knights, Elmont. Elmont, dressed in military uniform, had a cold face and saluted Rohan in a cold tone. "Your Excellency the Envoy, the Queen has been waiting for a long time." "Well, lead the way." This once enthusiastic knight commander turned out to be so unfamiliar, which made Rohan worry about whether his control over this world was safe. Did they all know that the Durachi elves were here to plunder? He came here to mobilize the army, but these troops were theoretically loyal to Isabel. If he took them away by force, he would probably lose the support of the royal family. Inside the castle, some of the royal knights on guard were patrolling. When they saw Rohan's pointed ears, they pretended not to see him. Some even snorted coldly. Rohan didn't know that the reason why Elmont became so indifferent was not because he knew Rohan's identity, but because the royal knights were expelled from the inner castle of the palace. It was miserable. Rohan left 2 teams of silver mist guards to Isabel to protect her safety. These 200 Durachi warriors lived up to expectations and made great achievements on the battlefield. They even saved Isabel in an assassination, won her trust, and became her new palace guards. The original palace guards, the royal knights, were arranged to patrol the periphery of the castle, which made those proud knights feel insulted. The queen actually didn't trust these loyal ministers who had guarded the royal family for hundreds of years, but trusted those outsiders who had just arrived? Exclamation mark. But unfortunately, each of those silver mist guards could beat 10 of them, so they could only leave the inner castle with reluctance. After entering the inner castle, Rohan looked at those familiar elf faces and recalled the human knights patrolling the outer city that he had seen before, and then he vaguely guessed what had happened. Seeing Rohan, the silver mist guards saluted one after another. One of the captains came forward, knelt on one knee to Rohan, and said in Elvish, "Sir, we have faithfully completed the task you assigned. When can you recall us? Durachi looks forward to fighting under your leadership." "Humph. As the Queen's guards, you actually pay such a big gift to others. It's really a loss of royal dignity." Before Rohan could speak, Elmont's rebuke came over. Although he was no longer a guard in the inner city, he was obviously quite dissatisfied with the captain's behavior. Hearing this, the captain stood up, pretending to be shocked, and pointing at Elmont, and shouted to the silver mist guards beside him in human language, "Oh my god, look at this wild monkey. It's hard to imagine that this creature can actually speak. You guys chat. I'll go in first." Looking at the 2 people who were on the verge of a fight, Rohan ignored them and hurried towards the direction of the bedroom. After all, the effect of the rebirth pill does not last long, and he must hurry up. "You can't go in. You must wait for the order of Her Majesty the Queen." Seeing that Rohan was about to enter Her Majesty the Queen's bedroom without any hindrance, Elmont angrily wanted to stop him. In his eyes, Her Majesty the Queen must have been bewitched by the self-pretty boy. However, 2 silver-plated halberds were directly across his body, and the silver mist guards pointed their weapons directly at Elmont. The captain grinned and said, "Little monkey, watch your attitude. You are talking nonsense to a dreadlord. Arsehole. You will regret it. Little monkey, we are the guards." Inside the bedroom the green vines and flowers are all over the corridor, and the crisp and melodious bird calls from time to time make Rohan a little confused. This doesn't seem to be cultivated. Could it be that Isabel's life spell has been fully cultivated? Following the direction in his memory and coming to the door of the familiar room, Rohan finally checked the efficacy of the medicine on his body, then knocked on the door, and then walked in. If Isabel's life spell is indeed completed, then any small movement of his will be detected in this bedroom composed of plants. After opening the door, Rohan saw a beautiful figure with long brown red hair, sitting in front of the dressing table, and arranging her hair. "Lisa? Is that you? Law. You finally came back to see me." The figure was Isabel. She turned around and looked at Rohan excitedly, but Rohan did not hug her like he did before. On the one hand, Isabel is now a mage, and Rohan is not sure whether he should still treat her as a little girl. On the other hand, oh my, there really is a little man with countless needles on the bedside. No way. No matter what, I really like her, but I didn't expect that she actually made a voodoo doll. Could it be that after the fantasy and dream of childhood were shattered, the whole person became a Yandir? Exclamation mark. Looking at Isabel with a smile on her face, Rohan hesitated for a moment and finally decided to hug her. On the one hand, it was because he did deceive the other party, and on the other hand, he had the rebirth pill as a backup, so he was not afraid of encountering any danger. Looking at Rohan, who opened his arms and hugged her, Isabel's eyes flashed with a strange color. She responded to Rohan's hug obediently and said gently, "You lied to me. You even pretended to be a good person. My people and I are indeed not good people, but I really love you." After hearing Rohan's explanation, quibble, Isabel's little head tilted, then shook her head and refused. "I heard from a friend that your compatriots like to perform blood sacrifices and have always liked to capture humans as slaves. Is that true?" "It's true. Most of my people are not good people. I also heard from the knights that your love for me is all fake, and you simply want to use my throne to realize your ambition to control this continent. Is that true?" "Only the second half is true." "Then, is your love for me real?" On the wall of the bedroom, countless vines suddenly bound Rohan's limbs, and at the same time, tiny thorns slowly appeared on the vines. Even after taking painkillers, Rohan could still feel his skin being torn apart and couldn't help but sigh inwardly that taking drugs was the right thing to do. Rohan looked into Isabel's eyes, his icy blue pupils full of sincerity, and said nonchalantly, "If you want to know if my love is real, let me go, and I will prove it to you." P.S. The next chapter may be a little Takon and Slanesh, so viewers with fragile hearts or under 18 years old, please watch it at your own discretion. I'm even worried whether the next chapter will pass the review. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.